Hello and welcome to Six Part. Today I'm gonna start a new series. What if Deku fell in love with Mirko? Part 1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Izuku Midoriya saved Rumi Usagiyama when they first met. It was not dramatic in the sense that heroic rescues were portrayed in some stories. There was no grand stage, no villainous monologue, no burning building. Just a small park, a group of bullies, and a little girl with white hair and bunny ears who refused to cry. 4-year-old Izuku, who was quirkless but unwavering in his resolve to be a hero, didn't hesitate when he noticed the older boys encircling her. Despite the numbers against her, she had been trying to fight back by growling and kicking while they laughed and tugged at her ears. Izuku ran in headfirst. "Leave her alone," he yelled, his arms outstretched. He was pushed hard to the ground by one of the boys. Izuku, however, was not discouraged. He stood up again. Once more. And once more. He didn't give up even though his lip split and his nose bled. If only because a teacher eventually noticed and repelled the bullies, his obstinacy was enough to frighten them. Red-eyed and inquisitive, the white-haired girl gazed at him. She said, "You're stupid," while holding her hands to her hips. Even though blood was streaming from his nose, Izuku smiled. Maybe. But heroes save people, right? Then something softened, something changed in her face. She extended her hand to him. "I'm Rumi. You're mine now." From that day forward, Izuku and Rumi were inseparable. Together, they practiced, played, and dreamed. One followed the other wherever it went. Rumi had no parents. She lived with her grandmother, Madoka, a striking woman who, despite appearing youthful and vibrant, carried an old soul's wisdom. She had an endless supply of teasing remarks and was playful, always smiling mischievously. "You're such a softie, Izuku," she would exclaim, nudging him playfully whenever he fussed over Rumi's injuries sustained during training. "Rumi's strong, she doesn't need your hero complex." However, Inko Midoriya fell in love with Rumi the moment they laid eyes on each other. Every time Rumi came to visit, she would swoon over the bunny ears and insist on preparing extra food, saying, "You're adorable." For her part, Rumi rolled her eyes when Inko fussed, but she was never bothered. However, it was obvious to both women that Rumi and Izuku were more than just friends from their youth. Their dreams bound them together like kindred spirits. Their dreams grew along with them. "I'm going to be the #1 hero," Rumi said at 6. Sitting next to Izuku on the playground with her arms folded. Izuku smiled, admiration shining in his eyes. "Me too." She gave a snort. "You're quirkless, dumbass." Unfazed, Izuku nodded. "Yeah, but I won't let that stop me." After a long moment of staring, Rumi gave him a hard punch to the arm. "Good. I don't hang out with quitters." They were so close that even as children, a simple punch could express how well they understood one another. Izuku winced and rubbed his arm, but he smiled back. He was aware that she was pushing him to improve. In exchange, he provided her with the assistance she required to maintain her grounding. It was an implicit agreement. Their shared dreams weren't the only thing that bonded them. Every small moment they spent together did. Like the time they were 12 and Rumi got her first training injury, an ankle sprain from overworking herself in their backyard sparring session. The instant she stumbled, Izuku had hurried to her side, her face contorted in agony as her knee almost struck the floor. "Rumi!" Izuku shouted, panic in his voice. "Are you okay?" She clutched her ankle and winced. "It's fine, just a little sprain." Izuku, however, would not have it. Despite the fact that he was likely to look foolish, he insisted on carrying her to the bench. After all of their training together, his arms were now strong, and he sat her down gently. Then, as quickly as he could, he ran back inside to get bandages and ice. His desperate attempts caused Rumi to smile. She made fun of her soft voice by saying, "You're so dramatic," while trying to conceal it. Izuku tried to look serious as he glared at her. "You'll be fine. You just need to take a break and—" Her good leg was used to poke him in the chest. "Just don't go all hero on me, Izuku," she interrupted. "I'm not made of glass." Izuku whispered, "I'm just worried about you," as she peered down at her ankle. "We still have a lot to do. I can't let you get hurt." After observing him for a considerable amount of time, Rumi touched his cheek, her fingers grazing the scar left by a previous sparring match. She said, "I know," in a voice that was barely audible. "I won't let you down." Izuku was a tall man by the time they were 14, standing a whopping 6 feet 4 inches tall. Years of training with Rumi had shaped his body into something strong and powerful, a far cry from the scrawny, quirkless child he had been before. He was quick, strong, and more resilient than most. And Rumi, though shorter at 5 feet 3 inches, with a body that most girls would kill for, she developed early, as evidenced by her large but firm butt, which was formed from the numerous squats and other exercises, and her well-endowed chest. She is a force of nature despite her diminutive size. Her punches had enough force to send boys twice her size sprawling, and each kick she delivered had the potential to break bones. They had established a reputation as fighters rather than troublemakers at their school. Bakugo, who had been the bully in childhood, was now more of a rival. Even though he continued to boast and sneer, he was unable to deny that Izuku had changed from the youngster he had once made fun of. What about Rumi? Whenever his ego got out of control, she made it a point to correct him. Nevertheless, despite their development and advancement, Izuku's dream remained unchanged. He remained a hero at heart, and fate chose to put him to the test that day. The attack by the sludge villain happened quickly. After school, Izuku and Rumi were on their way home when their typical teasing filled the air. Then there were screams and explosions all over the city. Then they saw him, Bakugo, struggling as he fought for air while imprisoned in the sludge monster's grasp. Heroes were standing back, hesitant, waiting for the right moment to act. Izuku, however, didn't wait. Before Rumi could stop him, he took action. She didn't scream at him to quit, failed to seize his arm. When someone needed saving, Izuku didn't hesitate, and she knew it better than anyone else. Instead, regardless of the number of people in her path, she ran after him. Her instincts told her to follow him, and her heart was racing in her chest. She yelled, "Izuku!" But it was too late. He had already arrived and was rushing in Bakugo's direction. She could only keep up with him as he fought, trying to keep his focus on the task. Izuku lunged forward and picked up a metal pipe off the floor. He swung, slamming it into the eye of the sludge with all the force in his body. All the opening he needed was the roar and the recoil. His fingers barely touched Bakugo's as he reached for him, but then... a wind gust. A loud voice. All Might. With such force that the sludge villain exploded into innocuous goo, the #1 hero swooped down and struck. Then there was silence. Bakugo then glared up at Izuku while coughing. He rasped, "Dumbass," but there was a hint of grudging gratitude in his eyes. Izuku smiled and extended his hand. "You're welcome." Later, when All Might pulled Izuku aside, there was something serious in his gaze. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you run in?" Bewildered, Izuku blinked. "Because someone needed help." "That's not what I mean," interjected All Might. "You have no quirk. You knew the risks, and yet, you still acted." Izuku's face remained fixed, because that's what heroes do. Between them, there was silence. Then All Might's face slowly lit up with a smile. He saw it for the first time, the fire, the potential, the unflinching will. When All Might said, "I think you've got what it takes," his smile grew. "And that's why I'm going to give you my power." Izuku's eyes went wide with surprise. "What? But, you're the #1 hero." All Might inhaled deeply. "It's true. But, Izuku, there's something important you must understand. You see, my power isn't just about strength. It's about the will to never give up. To keep fighting, no matter the odds." He took a moment to collect his thoughts. Then, with pride and a tinge of sadness in his eyes, he gave Izuku a serious look. "I've been hiding this secret from the world. This is the real me, Izuku. The person I truly am. I've been holding on to one for all, and I'm passing it to you." The change was amazing. The massive, muscular body of All Might started to dwindle before Izuku's eyes. His body seemed to deflate, revealing the skeletal, fragile figure beneath. Izuku experienced a wave of wonder and terror. "So you've been, like this all along?" All Might gave a nod. "Yes. But I've been hiding it, to keep the faith of the people. Now it's time for you to carry the legacy." Izuku's heart was pounding. "I'll do my best." The smile on All Might's face was one of approval. "I know you will. But this isn't going to be easy. I'll train you, Izuku, and you'll need to push your limits in ways you never have before." Izuku gave a determined nod. He had no fear. He had been dreaming about this moment. And now nothing could stop him, not even the absence of a quirk. She pushed him with her shoulder that night while they were sitting on the roof of his apartment building, watching the stars. The words, "You're an idiot," she whispered. Izuku laughed. "You're the second person to tell me that today." She turned and looked into his red eyes. "But you're my idiot." His chest blossomed with warmth. He grinned. "Yeah." The city lights were shining beneath them as they sat in cozy silence. And even though they were unaware of it at the time, Their journey together was just getting started. Broken furniture and rusted auto parts were covered in a golden haze as the sun rose over Dagoba Beach. The rhythmic thud of metal against sand almost drowned out the whispering waves against the shore. Izuku Midoriya heaved an old vending machine onto the expanding pile and let out a sharp exhale. Drops of sweat ran down his jaw. Power rippled through his once slim body, which had been sculpted for function rather than show. Each movement carried weight. Every breath, every purpose. However, the beach continued to resemble a battleground. They were only halfway through. "You're improving," a proud, familiar, and gravely voice said behind him. Izuku turned to see Toshinori Yagi drinking from a thermos. He was slender and hunched in his actual form. The majority of people were unaware of the All Might, the legend's creator. "Still a long way to go," Izuku said, panting and grinning wearily. Toshinori stated, "Exactly why this matters. You've already got strength, Midoriya. Years of running, fighting, surviving. You were forged long before I ever found you. This training isn't just for muscle. It's for your soul. To bring your heart in line with the legacy you're about to inherit." Izuku's eyes turned to the chaos surrounding him. "You mean, one for all?" Toshinori gave a nod. "You already understand what it means to risk yourself for others. But this task, this endless, brutal work, is to test your resolve. When no one is watching. When no one is thanking you. That's when a hero is truly born." Rumi Usagiyama watched it all from atop the lifeguard tower. Now, Izuku was different. Not only was he quieter, but he was also bigger, though damn if the guy didn't look like he'd stepped out of a fitness commercial. Sharper. He was more focused than ever before. And always with that wiry old man she now knew was much more than he looked like, Toshinori. Her crimson eyes narrowed. There was a problem. She didn't press. Not just yet. But every time Izuku smiled at her, looking exhausted, and said, "Just training," she felt a knot in her stomach. She discovered him by himself at the beach at sunset the next week. Toshinori was gone already. Even though the beach was cleaner, it still had the appearance of a cemetery, and the sky was dotted with pinks and golds. She crossed her arms and leaned on a lamppost. "You gonna tell me what's really going on?" Izuku winced. "Rumi, softly, I'm not mad," she said. "Just worried. You've been off, distant." Gazing down at his hands, he sat on an overturned crate. "It's not that I don't trust you." "Then tell me." "I can't," he said in a whisper, "not yet." There was a twist in her chest. "Okay," she said after a moment, "but you better not shut me out forever, nerd." Rumi appeared more and more over the course of the following few days. She made no inquiries. Not right away, but she was never far away, racing him up sand dunes, shoving any girl who hung around Izuku for too long, and slamming trash into piles like it owed her money. One girl blushed when she attempted to give him a sports drink. In an instant, Rumi was at her side. "You lost?" she said, smiling sharply and sweetly. "This isn't a tour site, it's a landfill." With a blink, the girl fled. Izuku chuckled uncomfortably. You didn't have to scare her off. She had it coming. Besides, she banged her shoulder against his arm. "You're mine." She wasn't casual when she said it. There was silence, fierce. Izuku simply flushed scarlet and turned away with a stupid smile without responding. Rumi was sitting in Madoka's sunroom that evening, brushing her hair. Still looking beautiful at her advanced age, her grandmother sipped wine while lounging on a stack of cushions. "Looks like our bunny's got her eyes on someone," Madoka winked and teased. Rumi moaned and flushed. "Gran," she paused and said, "strong, kind, brooding. I approve, but he's hiding something." Rumi's ears perked up. Madoka said, "I can feel it," her eyes piercing even through the smile. "Be patient. But don't let him drift too far." With a heavy heart, Rumi nodded. A few days later, Izuku stood on top of the partially cleared beach and gazed at the sunset. His curls were tousled by the wind. The edges were still covered in trash. It was far from finished. But there was more weight in his chest. He said, "I can't keep lying to her," as Toshinori came closer. All Might remarked, "I wondered when you'd ask." In Izuku's words, "I trust her, more than anyone. She's been by my side since we were kids. I've never done anything without her, and it's eating me alive to hide this from her now." For a long time, Toshinori gazed at him, then he grinned. "Very well. She's proven herself to be a fierce and loyal friend. But be warned, once you share this, her life will change too." "I know." "Then, tell her." The Usagiyama home's windows were filled with a gentle hum that night. While Madoka slept soundly in the adjacent room, curled up on her stack of satin pillows, Rumi sat cross-legged on the couch, wearing loose shorts and a tank top, and flipping through a manga. A subtle scent of old incense and jasmine tea filled the air. A knock on the door was heard. After blinking and taking a quick look at the time, Rumi padded over and opened it. Izuku appeared to have run across the city as he stood there. His eyes were wide and stormy with emotion, and he was still wearing his training clothes, his curls wet with sweat. His voice was low as he asked, "Can we talk?" Without a word, Rumi moved aside. He entered, paced once, and then stood in the middle of her living room as if it were a personal trial. "I have to tell you something. I should have told you sooner, but I didn't want to put you in danger. Still, you deserve the truth." Inspoken in her eyes, Rumi kept a close eye on him. Izuku took a swallow. "All Might chose me." She knitted her brows. "What?" "He's not just mentoring me. He's giving me something. A quirk, his quirk." Her mouth fell open. "Wait, what? That's not even possible." "It is," he interrupted. "One for all, it's passed down, from one user to the next, and he chose me." Rumi took a seat slowly and tried to think. "Why?" Izuku let out a breath. "Because I said I wanted to save people. All of them. Even if it cost me everything." The back of his neck was rubbed. "I know I don't have a flashy quirk or some big legacy, but I've always wanted to help. To be the help. To be the person that shows up when no one else will." A slow warmth blossomed in her chest as her gaze softened. "You're a dork," she said in a low voice, "but you're my dork." Izuku looked up at last. Rumi moved across the room between them and gave his chest a light fist smack before letting it drop to the ground. "You don't have to carry all this alone, you know. I didn't want to drag you into something dangerous." "You didn't drag me anywhere, idiot," she said, wrinkles in her nose. "I chose to be by your side. I always have." His eyes were slightly misty as he grinned. "Then I guess this is our secret." She grinned. "Damn right it is." She flicked his forehead while standing on her tiptoes. "But next time you keep something this big from me, I'm suplexing you into the couch." Izuku laughed. "Deal." She looked over her shoulder and turned to face the kitchen. "You hungry? I think Gran left snacks." A strange calm settled in his chest as he followed her. The weight felt lighter for the first time in days. Rumi sat cross-legged on her bed the following morning, her arms folded behind her head, gazing up at the ceiling. Like lightning under her skin, Izuku's secret, All Might's secret, blasted through her mind. It didn't alter her perception of him. If anything, it intensified the unspoken, fierce, yet delicate flowering behind her ribs. It was no longer merely admiration, it wasn't just love, either. It was pride. Before the sun had fully risen, she pulled on her hoodie, fastened her hair tie, and departed. There was already a lot of movement on Dagoba Beach. Izuku was pulling an old rusted refrigerator toward the sorting piles while wearing a sweat-soaked tank top. A stopwatch ticked as Toshinori, in his real form, sat on a flimsy folding chair nearby. Rumi approached and arched an eyebrow. "Yo," she called. "Hope you weren't planning to hog all the fun." Izuku's eyes brightened as he turned. "Rumi," after blinking, Toshinori laughed, "so she does know now." Izuku gave his neck a sheepish scratch. "Yeah. I didn't want to keep it from her anymore." Toshinori stood and held out a thin, grizzled hand. "Toshinori Yagi. It's good to meet you, properly." She said, "Rumi Usagiyama," and gave it a firm shake. "And for the record, I've known this idiot since we were kids." With Rumi now involved, the training grew more intense after that day. She occasionally assisted in clearing debris by using her incredible strength to move heavier items. On other occasions, she sat close by during Izuku's breaks or accompanied him on his morning runs, observing how his resolve solidified into steel. He had trained with a powerhouse during his years of growing up with her, so he was already in good shape, but the goal of this training was not to get stronger. It was about discovering the meaning of strength. It was heart, resolve, and grit. His origin was being forged in this way, and day by day, Rumi witnessed it. She could also see how other girls had begun to take notice of him. His focus was unwavering, so he didn't give it any thought, but Rumi did. She observed the sly looks, the bashful laughter, and the way they hovered around him in the hallways. She detested it as well. "You're acting weird," Madoka teased one evening as she hummed an old song while braiding Rumi's hair. "I'm not." "You are," Madoka voiced by singing. "You've caught feelings, deep ones." "I'm not falling," complained Rumi. "I'm, maybe tripping a little." Madoka gave her a head kiss while laughing. "Then don't trip alone." Inko Midoriya had also observed the change. Sweat-soaked but full of purpose, her son returned home. Rumi visited more frequently, either to assist in the kitchen or to spar with him in the backyard. They now had a subdued rhythm. One evening, while folding laundry, Inko said, "You like him," while Rumi gave her a stack of towels. Rumi stopped in her tracks. Gently, "Don't worry," Inko added. "I think he likes you too. He's just a little busy chasing the sun." With a hint of blush, Rumi looked down. "Then I guess I'll just have to catch it with him." The days blended together. Home, training, school, and so on. Although Bakugo continued to be boisterous and unruly, Izuku's increasing strength and self-assurance started to ease their tension. He was less mean, but still explosive. Between the cracks of their rivalry, respect had begun to develop. During lunch one afternoon, a girl approached Izuku to sit next to her. With a wide-eyed smile that dared the girl to argue, Rumi took the seat first. She didn't. Izuku didn't question it, but blinked. As if sharing his bento with Rumi were the most natural thing in the world, he simply grinned and did so. The beach had changed by the end of the month. Although it was no longer covered in trash, it was still unclean. The air had a more pleasant scent. The breeze from the sea was clearer. Izuku, too? Izuku had also changed. His frame was sculpted by sweat and determination, and he was taller and wider. His intellect was more acute. His determination was unwavering. Although he had always aspired to assist others, he was now developing the ability to do so. One night, Toshinori sat with him on the seawall and watched the sunset. Izuku stated, "I don't want to be the next you," in a steady voice. "I want to be the first me. The kind of hero people can count on, no matter the cost." Quietly proud, Toshinori nodded. That's exactly the kind of heart one for all needs. Later that evening, Izuku sat next to Rumi on the boardwalk while the moonlight painted everything silver and the waves roared gently below. He remarked, "I'm really glad you know, it's been easier since I told you." With her shoulder against his, Rumi leaned into him. "Good. 'Cause I would have figured it out anyway." He laughed. "Of course you would." She stopped and threaded her fingers through his. "Just promise me something." "Anything. No more secrets. Ever. No more secrets." As they watched the water ripple in the moonlight, their hands remained clasped together. The voyage had really started, after a month. It was nearly impossible to recognize the beach now. Clean, smooth sand and open air replaced the rusted car frames and mountains of debris that had once stood like monuments to neglect. The waves crashed with a rhythmic calm, and the rot of decay had been supplanted by the smell of salt. Izuku stood in the middle of it all, his shirt clinging to his back, his arms hurting, and his breathing laboring. Rumi, who had assisted him in moving the final corroded freezer onto the pile, was close by, extending a sore shoulder. She gave him a quick glance before surveying the cleared area and nodding slightly in admiration. She said, "You did it," and gave him a light shoulder punch. Beach Boy cleaned up the whole coast. He laughed and winced. "We did it." She smiled and said, "You still did most of the heavy lifting, but now you owe me ice cream." Unquestionably proud, Toshinori walked up and smiled. "You finished an entire month ahead of schedule, young Midoriya. That's beyond admirable." Izuku's gaze lowered to his hands. Compared to earlier, they were rougher. More powerful. Not at all like the hesitant fingers that had shuddered the day he reached out to save Rumi as though she were in need of saving. "I couldn't have done it alone." Rumi said simply, "You were never alone," as she nudged his side. Toshinori inhaled deeply. "Then, it's time." He extended a lock of hair. "Eat this." Rumi blinked. What?" Toshinori nodded gravely and stated, "Izuku must consume a fragment of my DNA in order to inherit one for all." "Yes, it's gross. I didn't design the system." Izuku gazed at the strand of hair. "Can't we put it in a protein shake or something?" Toshinori's eyebrows went up. Okay, Izuku sighed. He gave Rumi a quick look. She gave a thumbs up after making a playful grimace. "Do it, hair muncher. I'm gonna regret telling you that nickname stuck, aren't I?" He took a deep breath and ate the hair with a dramatic lack of ceremony. Rumi choked. "I take back the ice cream." Torino's training the days that followed flew by. Izuku nervously pushed himself harder under Toshinori's eye while he waited for the quirk to subside. However, something was still lacking. He had the ability to use one for all, but he was unable to do so without hurting himself. Izuku had been carrying one for everyone for almost 40 years, and Toshinori had to remind him of it. Since he first got it, the power had grown exponentially. Not to mention that the power was increased by the transfer. Therefore, it was not Izuku's fault that he was now a perfect vessel. All they needed was someone with more training experience. Presenting Gran Torino. The old man said, "Yagi, you brought me a green bean," as they met on the recently cleared beach. "And you brought a bunny girl. Should I be worried about your tastes?" "I brought students, you fossil," All Might shot back, letting out a rare chuckle. "Help them, would you?" Izuku caught Gran Torino's eye. "You've got the power, but you're trying to use it like a faucet instead of a flow. That's why your limbs keep snapping like dried spaghetti." "Thanks," Izuku said quietly. "You're welcome, broccoli." Rumi gave a snort. Gran Torino had a direct, annoying, and startlingly successful training method. He didn't give in. While avoiding actual attacks, he forced them to spar on the sand. He had them run laps while lifting weights attached to ropes. When they struck clean, he praised them, yelled at them for their hesitation, and once pushed a bag of mochi into Izuku's mouth in the middle of a sentence because he talked too damn much. It was during one of those never-ending beach drills that Izuku made his breakthrough. His fists trembled as he staggered, panting. "Stop considering power to be a switch," Gran Torino yelled. "Make it part of your movement. Make it flow." Izuku turned to observe Rumi from the side. Her eyes were piercing, proud but worried. He desired strength. Not for himself alone, for her as well. Then something clicked. His muscles felt a surge of power, like lightning dancing just beneath the skin. Managed, easy. He shifted. Not as it was. Quicker, more powerful, concentrated. "Full cowl," Toshinori muttered from the sidelines, stunned. He exerted more effort. He improved it every day after that, realizing that 20% was the upper limit for the time being, even though he could push higher for a short time. If he continued, his body would start to break once more. One evening, Rumi said, "You're glowing," as he fell on the beach next to her. "You always glow when you figure something out." He teased, "You're glowing too," in a low voice. She blushed despite rolling her eyes, returning to school. Unfortunately, middle school had not disappeared. With Gran Torino's sporadic surprise, dropkick greetings, training, and school, life was a complete mess. Rumi and Izuku, however, discovered moments of stealth in the midst of everything. Going to school on foot. Distributing snacks. Arguing about who should get the last rice ball. Anyone who listened could see how they were connected. "Deku," Bakugo snarled once during lunch, "You've changed recently." Izuku blinked. Thanks, you're not annoying anymore. What gives?" "I guess, I found something to fight for." Sitting next to him, Rumi grinned without raising her eyes from her bento. Damn right he did. Waiting for late-night confessions at home, Madoka combed her long hair while Rumi sat with her legs draped over the arm of the couch. The hum of Madoka said, "You're thinking about it again." "A little too hastily," Rumi said. "Thinking about what?" "You're gonna tell him. I know it. You love him." "I'm waiting until we pass the exam." Madoka grinned. "Because romance comes after explosions and entrance exams?" "Basically." Madoka gave her nose a tap. "You've got your grandma's fire, Rumi. Use it." Exhaling, Rumi steadied herself. "After we pass, then I'll tell him." The journey to destiny the UA's morning. The entrance exam arrived too soon. With muscles that fit the sleeves better than ever, Izuku adjusted his uniform. His nerves were anything but light, but his bag was light on his back. Wearing her own uniform and with an unreadable expression, Rumi met him outside his home. She said, "You ready?" "I think so." She pushed his arm and said, "Too bad. You don't get to think so." "You are. Let's go, hero boy." They strolled alongside each other through the imposing gates of UA soaring off in the distance. Rumi spoke again as they crossed the threshold, but her voice was hushed. "Hey, when we pass, I want to talk to you about something." Izuku turned to look. "Something serious? Kinda?" He smiled slightly at her. "Then I'll make sure we pass." They continued walking. Together. Ahead of them, UA High stood like a monument, its glass and steel reflecting the morning sun as if it were ushering in a new era. Students rushed forward, some cocky, some nervous, most merely trying to avoid being eaten alive by their nerves. Two figures walked side by side among them. Rumi smirked and spoke, "You're walking like you're ready to punch the school in the face," as she pushed her elbow into Izuku's side. "I'm focused, Snowball," he announced, giving her a fleeting smile. "This is the day everything changes." She twitched her ears and teased, "Oh, so now you're cool and dramatic. What happened to the dork who tripped over his own dumbbells last week?" "I was dodging your surprise kick, Fluff," he shot back smoothly. That was a survival instinct. She sulked, that kick was affectionate, you're lucky I didn't go full fury mode. Lucky's not the word I'd use. As the crowd pressed forward, they paused in front of the gates, briefly rubbing shoulders. Rumi lowered her voice and cocked her head in his direction. Hey, remember what I said at the end of training? Izuku nodded as he looked at her. Yeah, after we pass. She smirked softly and flicked his forehead. Right, she said. So make sure you do pass, Mr. Big Shoulders. I don't want to talk to a loser. Before it fell, he grabbed her hand and held it for a brief moment. You either, bunny. Give him hell. She released her grip and smiled, her teeth showing. You know I will. The UA written test, 45 minutes later. The pencils scratched. Time passed. A few pupils gazed at the ceiling as if it contained the solutions. But Izuku was in the zone. With the same intensity he used to kick, Gran Torino had hammered theory into his mind. Situational ethics, rescue techniques, and quirk law all made sense. His hand moved quickly, neatly, and effectively. Rumi leaned over the desk like she was in a hammock, sitting cross-legged in her seat 2 rows over. With the slack-jawed assurance of someone who had already won, her gaze darted from question to question. She glanced up halfway through, meeting Izuku's gaze on the other side of the room. He arched an eyebrow. She gave a wink. With a grin tugging at his lips, he rolled his eyes and returned to his paper. Simulation briefing in the orientation hall. Welcome to today's practical exam. Like a caffeine bolt, Present Mike's voice rang out across the auditorium. Point systems, target explanations, and simulated maps glowed on a huge screen. I hope those robot things explode real good. I've been itching to crack something, Rumi muttered as she stretched. Don't get bloodthirsty, Bun, Izuku shot back, closely observing the screen. With a hand on her chest, she declared, I'm not bloodthirsty, I'm challenge thirsty. The flow was broken a few rows behind them by Bakugo's well-known growl. TCH. Look who's here, Deku and his damn mascot. Izuku did not even turn around, still with the kindergarten insults, Kachan? Bakugo yelled, still acting like you're better than me? Rumi smiled at Bakugo as if she were about to jump, turned, and rested an elbow back on Izuku's shoulder. He is better than you. Taller, smarter, and he actually likes people. You wanna go, rabbit? Only if I get to drag you by your spiky mop, she said, teeth sharp behind her smile. Iida made an effort to step in. This behavior is completely inappropriate. You are future heroes, please behave. I'll behave when the floor stops echoing every step you take like a war drum, Rumi blunted. Izuku simply massaged his temples. Let's focus on the test and not pick a fight with every person in the room. As she nudged him once more, Rumi teased, where's the fun in that, muscles? You're no fun when you're all noble. I'm plenty fun. Sure you are, mighty nerd. Playfully, he narrowed his eyes and turned his head. Keep calling me that and I won't carry your snacks after the exam. You wouldn't dare. Soon after, the students were led from the auditorium to the front of the building, where a fleet of buses bearing the UA's black and white labels, each assigned to a different testing location, waited. Rumi crossed her arms and said, looks like they're shipping us off to separate cities, as they got closer to the buses. You think they're worried we'd break the test if they kept us together? Taking a look at the buses, Izuku stated, I'd say that's a valid concern. I heard they rotate the zones every year. No 2 examinees get the exact same layout. She whispered, I had better get one with big buildings. I've been practicing my wall running and I want to flex it. He grinned. Maybe your test will just be one long hallway with no exits. Just robots, wall to wall. I'd still win. I know. They came to a halt close to the signs dividing the groups. The bus from Zone B was nearer the entrance, and the bus from Zone D was at the far end. Well, that's me, Rumi remarked as she eyed her path. Guess this is where the dream team splits. According to him, only for a bit, we'll meet back at the top. Her voice became lower and more intimate as she moved closer. Seriously, Izuku, knock this out of the park. I want us both walking into UA. As he gazed down at her, the warmth behind his eyes gradually turned into a steady state. We will. A smug smile tugged at Rumi's lips. Good. 'Cause I've still got something to talk to you about after. He laughed. Yeah, I remember. So don't get cocky just 'cause you're the cute one. She squinted as she turned to go to her bus. Oh, I know I'm the cute one. But don't forget, I'm also the one who's gonna beat your score. We'll see about that, Fluff. Bring it on, muscles. Their eyes locked long enough to convey every silent word between them as they exchanged a final glance before getting on their separate buses. The engines came to life with a roar. The UA waited. Izuku Side B. Go. With a mechanical shriek, the gates flew open, and before anyone could comprehend what was happening. Boom. Already, Izuku was a blur. His veins throbbed with light as 15% full cowl rushed through his limbs. The wind ripped past his ears as he sped ahead. He avoided a swipe from a one-pointer, slid beneath a falling street sign, and leapt, flipping in midair to slam both heels into a three-pointer's chest. Crack. Wham. On impact, the bot burst, sending sparks flying like fireworks. Aizawa whispered, "Midoriya's fast," over the observation feed, and surgical. Present Mike added, adjusting his shades, "He's prioritizing precision. Impressive control at that speed." Izuku dropped into a crouch and ran once more, his eyes keen and ever scannable. He was more than a mere combatant. He was making calculations. Two pupils were buried under a storefront's debris. Without hesitation, Izuku slid in, used an elbow strike infused with lightning to crush a one-pointer, and then grabbed the metal beam that was pinning them. He gave a grunt. "Hold on." He lifted it, electricity dancing along his spine, and threw it aside with a growl. One student exclaimed, Thank you," but Izuku had already left, pursuing the next danger. Rumi Usagiyama, Side D like a bomb, she struck the ground. Metal debris flew into the air as the impact shook the mock sidewalk. Smirking at the carnage, Rumi cracked her knuckles. "We're down 4 points. Next." With her ears twitching, she twisted and launched herself backward off the broken wall, landing heel first in the torso of another approaching bot. Boom. With a distorted moan, the bot fell to the ground. "That all you got?" Then, a voice, feeble, terrified. "Help. I'm stuck." Rumi's gaze jerked to the alley. She ran, zigzagging between fallen signs and crumbling walls. She discovered her, a girl who resembled a frog stuck beneath half of a car. Already crouched, she questioned, "You alive under there, frog girl?" Suyu blinked. "Barely, then stay very still." Rumi grunted and grinned savagely before squatting down and tossing the car over like a toy. Suyu's gaze expanded. "Damn. You're strong. You should see me when I'm trying." Suyu brushed dust from her uniform and smiled crookedly. "Name's Suyu. Or Sue." "Rumi," was her response, "but if you call me Bunny, we fight." Sue blinked. "Okay, Bunny. You're lucky I like people with guts." They both chuckled. Rumi's ears then pricked. "Trouble, northwest. Let's go." The UA room of observation Midnight remarked, "Usagiyama is tearing through the bots, she's a complete natural." Snipe went on to say, "She saved that student without hesitation, raw instinct and heart." Nezu remarked, "Midoriya's the same, different tactics, same results. They're not just strong. They're heroes in the making." Aizawa bent closer. "They've got potential, if they survive what's coming." Bakugo Katsuki, Side C boom. Smoke and flame poured from Katsuki like a raging storm as he blasted forward. He was flanked by a 4-point attempt. Too sluggish. Bakugo's palm roared with an explosion that tore through the bot's chest as he twisted in midair. Metal flew. Pupils ducked. With his eyes wild and his breathing heavy, Bakugo landed in the middle of the crater he had just created. Come on. With his violent and egotistical movements, he was a tornado of destruction. Number 1, Baby. Returning to Midoriya, Izuku. Behind him, a 4-pointer attempted to sneak up. Izuku punched upward into its undercarriage, full cowl arcing lightning around his fist as he spun in place. K.A. crack. The bot exploded in midair after launching 10 feet. He turned around once more. Behind an overturned van, 3 students were concealed. A 1-pointer was coming quickly. Izuku took off running, too quick to follow. Crunch. As the bot exploded behind him, he rolled, shoulder-checked it in the middle of the sprint, and used his body to protect the students. Why you saved us? He declared, I'm not done yet, and extended his hand. Run to the staging point, now. Returning to Rumi, on your left, exclaimed Sue. Rumi jumped and spun without even looking, her heel piercing a bot's head like a cannonball. She said, nice assist, and landed next to Sue. You're insane. Yup. They smiled at each other, and then the earth shook. The 2 girls hesitated. You feel that? Murmured Rumi. Suyu's gaze expanded. That's not normal. The UA room of observation, every sector of the ground shook. Oh my, Nezu exclaimed, her eyes glistening. Looks like it's time for the next phase. Muttering, they're not ready, Cementos said. They'll have to be, told Aizawa, returning to Izuku. He squinted his eyes. The tremor intensified. Something huge stirred in the distance. Returning to Suyu and Rumi slowly, they turned. Once, twice, Rumi's ears twitched. Then she smiled. Well, looks like the main course is here. Izuku Midoriya. Site B. The sky was full of smoke. The streets were littered with crushed robots. Lightning crackled along Izuku's limbs as he darted from alley to alley, using controlled bursts of 15% full cowl to dispatch small bots. His eyes were always searching for pupils, but each blow dropped a machine cleanly. First, save. Score points after that. A true hero does just that. When it struck, he had just pulled a trapped girl from a storefront that had collapsed. Boom. The air trembled. The shattered streets echoed with a deep, metallic rumble. Then he noticed it. With every step, the zero-pointer stomped into the area like a walking mountain, scattering bots like ants and cracking pavement. Its enormous arms swung through buildings like cranes, and its red eye gleamed. Students let out a scream. A few of them fled, others froze. It's not worth any points. No way I'm fighting that thing. With his eyes fixed and lightning blazing at his heels, Izuku remained motionless. It's not supposed to be beaten, that thing. It's a test. Not of power, though. He heard it as he turned to run. Ah, somebody help. A cry from the ruins in front. Not a companion. He didn't know anyone. Only one person. That was sufficient. He shifted. As full cowl immediately jumped to his maximum output of 20%, green sparks burst forth. Izuku moved in a blur on the sidewalk. When he arrived at the debris, he saw a girl pinned under concrete, bleeding and in a panic. It's okay. I got you. He crouchingly buried his teeth in his mouth. Dazed, she stared. Who? He simply ripped through the rubble as if it were an insult without responding. He threw the slab aside and yanked her free with one last heave. Then they were covered by the shadow. With its arm raised like a falling moon, the zero-pointer loomed overhead. Shortly before the giant's fist struck the ground like an asteroid, Izuku grabbed her and ran, jumping between smashed cars and overturned barricades. Debris was launched in all directions by the shockwave. After safely setting the girl down, he skidded to a stop and turned around. I can't just save her. His hands shook. He felt the heat of combat pulsing through his body. I have to stop that thing. Around him, lightning burst, exceeding his limit by 20 to 30%, but it was still manageable. He jumped. Izuku shot through the air, above the zero-pointer's face, using every bit of speed and every muscle that full cowl had tightened. A moment of quiet. Then, as energy rippled through the air, his leg pulled back. Smash! The giant's head struck his foot. It was a biblical force. Gears and servos shattered like glass as the force smashed through the zero-pointer's frame, causing its skull to implode. A deafening crack slammed into the ground as the entire bot crumpled like a tin can, its upper body ripped clean from its legs. Dust flew into the air. Quiet. Rumi Usagiyama, Site D. Smaller bots had been eliminated from Su and Rumi's sector. When the tremor struck, Su was gasping for air. Bunny? Yeah. I see it. As it turned toward them, the zero-pointer stomped into view, its metal feet crushing a parking structure. Su stepped back. We should go. You should, Rumi said, jumping up and down on the balls of her feet and grinning wildly. I'm gonna punch that thing in the face. Are you insane? Little bit. Rumi's muscles stiffened, and she bounded forward, laughing hysterically. She slammed full force into its leg, shattering the knee joint plate in the process. The giant shifted uncomfortably and lurched. She yelled, "Come on, big guy. Let's dance." The enormous arm of the zero-pointer swung downward. Rumi leapt and dodged, bouncing from lamppost to building, getting higher until she hit its shoulder. Wires snapped and gears twisted as she roared her heel into its upper frame. With a loud crash, the block shook as the enormous bot rolled and fell. Slack-jawed, Su stared. You actually knocked it over. Grinning, Rumi landed next to her, panting, told Ya. But it's still moving. I didn't say I killed it. The shockwave then traveled all the way across to their city to reach her. Rumi blinked. What the hell? Suyu raised her head from her hiding place. That wasn't you. With a cunning smile, Rumi said, Nope, but I bet I know who did it. She had a gut feeling that there could only be one individual. Her green being did something truly remarkable. Room of observation in the UA, silence reigned. As the screens glowed, the staff lounge. Midnight's mouth was open. He just destroyed it. Aizawa remained motionless. No hesitation. Pure instinct. He moved like a pro. Nezu had a big smile on his face while drinking tea. The heart of a true hero. A few minutes later. The dust settled. They were gathering students. With Recovery Girl leading the way and her cane clicking as she navigated the battlefield, a recovery team rushed in. Line up if you're bleeding or missing something. A number of pupils gestured toward the sky, where the ruins of the zero-pointer were still falling apart. The tall, lightning-scarred teenager who emerged from the debris, breathing heavily and with his shoulders squared, caught everyone's attention. Legs trembling from the mistreatment they've just received. Sparks are still dancing across the boy's arms, and his eyes are wild and green. Who was that? Did he take that thing out? He saved someone first. Izuku looked around, taken aback by the looks. Eventually, he simply responded to their looks with a sheepish smile and a little laugh. The UA moments following the exam in the front courtyard. With his knuckles bandaged, his hair still wild, and his uniform torn, Izuku sat on a bench close to the infirmary tents. Recovery Girl hovered close by, tapping her cane frantically on the floor. She pressed her lips into a line and snorted, "You reckless, muscle-headed boy," while adjusting his arm. "You're lucky I don't slap some common sense into you instead of healing you." Izuku gave a sheepish laugh. "Sorry, ma'am. It just felt right in the moment. You tore nearly every tendon in your legs. I should leave you in a cast just to teach you a lesson." Students were giggling and whispering around them, but not at Recovery Girl's reprimands. "That's the guy who broke the zero-pointer. He saved someone too, didn't even hesitate. Did you see how high he jumped? That was insane." Izuku moved still, his ears blazing. No matter how much praise he receives, he will never grow accustomed to it. At that moment, a well-known voice broke through the whispers. Rumi said, "Well, look at you. Hero boy." She smiled down at him as she strode over, hands behind her head, tail twitching idly. She had some small bandages wrapped around her biceps and her shirt was filthy, but she looked more energized than ever. "You gave the city a facelift, huh?" Izuku scratched the back of his head and laughed. "Just doing what I could." Recovery Girl let out a sigh. "I swear, you kids'll be the death of me." Rumi cocked her head as the elderly healer shuffled away. "Come on, hop off the bench. I want to introduce you to someone." Izuku stood up, still in pain, and followed her to the front gate of UA, where a girl with long green hair, wide eyes, and a laid-back smile was waiting. "Izuku, meet Tsuyu Asui," says Rumi. "She and I did a little damage to our own zero-pointer." Tsuyu blinked. She held out a hand and said, "Just Tsu is fine. You really went wild back there." Grinning, Izuku took her hand. He ignored Rumi's angry retort when he said, "Nice to meet you. I'm surprised others felt that with how far apart the cities must be. Thanks for keeping an eye on the snowball over there for me. I know how much of a handful she can be." "MMHM, Tsuyu uttered, especially since she didn't listen when I said don't jump on the giant robot." Rumi grinned. "Yeah, but I knocked it down, didn't I?" Izuku retorted, still reckless. The reply from Rumi was, "Pot, meet kettle." After a brief chuckle, the three departed. Walking side by side down the lengthy path toward the city, Rumi and Izuku turned toward the train station. Streets in the evening. Traveling home, warm oranges and gentle purples painted the sky as the sun sank low. With the chaos of the day behind them, they strolled leisurely. Saying, "So," Rumi looked up at him. "You really went full cowl on that big guy, huh?" Izuku grinned. "Yeah, didn't really have a choice. I saw someone trapped and couldn't turn away." She whispered, "That's why you're gonna be a damn good hero," with her eyes out. "You got that spark." He turned to face her. "What about you? I heard your bot got knocked flat." "Oh yeah," said Rumi, smiling with pride. "Didn't smash it like you, but gave it one hell of a kick. Almost knocked the head off. Tsuyu thought I was nuts." She's probably right. I've sure agree with the new girl. The air between them was warm and cozy as they laughed together once more. After a silent moment, Izuku cleared his throat. "Hey, about earlier, before the exam. You said there was something you wanted to talk to me about?" For an instant, Rumi's unreadable eyes darted toward him. Then she grinned. "Yeah, I remember." He waited, she stopped. "Well, Simply, not yet, she said. Not till we know we both made it in. Izuku blinked. What, you don't think we passed? Oh no, we definitely passed, winked Rumi in response. But I like a little suspense. The waiting week as Izuku stretched his arms overhead, the salty sharpness of the wind at Dagoba Beach filled his lungs. The weather was warm and serene. It was the sort of silence that seemed uncommon these days. Rumi followed him, moving slowly across the immaculate beach. They found refuge in what had been a wasteland of trash and metal. Because of the blood, perspiration, and memories buried in its sand, not because of its beauty. Rumi complained, I forgot how much I hate school without the training, throwing her bag aside and collapsing in their typical location close to the pier. Izuku sat next to her, wiping sand off his trousers. Yeah, it feels weird. Like we already stepped into a new world, but we're still stuck in the old one. Ain't that the truth? This whole week's been the slowest drag of my life. For a short while, they sat in friendly silence, watching the breaking waves. However, there was a tension beneath that calm that neither of them wanted to express aloud. Finally, with a sidelong glance at Toshi, Rumi said, You try calling Toshi again? Izuku gave a nod. Still nothing. I even left a voice message this morning. Think he's ghosting us 'cause we passed and he doesn't want to cry in front of us? He laughed. Maybe. Or he's just doing something important. He better not be fighting a villain without telling us, she grumbled. Izuku furrowed his brows as he gazed out over the ocean. It's not like him to disappear like this. Rumi gave him a foot bump. We'll give it a few more days. If he doesn't show by the time results come in, then we go looking. Deal. At Aldera Middle School the following day. Walking through the same hallways where they had grown up, surrounded by the same people, was like déjà vu. However, everything felt different this week. Whispering, their peers gave them more than usual glances. In particular, Izuku. A student whispered, You think he really took the UA exam? I heard they had robots to deal with. Didn't think he had it in him, he was always kinda quiet. Guess he ain't Deku anymore. He was no longer bothered by the rumors as much as he once was. Tall and steady, with a confidence he had never had before, he walked beside Rumi. Then Bakugo appeared. Leaning against the desk like it was a throne, he presided over the class from the front of the room. I dominated that test, he boasted, his arms folded. TCH. Like anyone else stood a chance. I probably got the highest score in the country. You think that green-haired guy? Bakugo interrupted the question, Deku? Don't make me laugh. Guy's just got some second-rate muscles. He probably broke himself trying to show off. Izuku did not recoil. He passed without a word, serene and unconcerned. But then Rumi smiled. He's still mad he stopped getting under your skin. Let him talk, said Izuku. We'll see where we all land soon enough. Once more, Dagoba the two of them returned to the beach more often than not during the week. They sparred a few times, did some light training, and occasionally just sat quietly while the sun sank behind the city skyline. After a particularly tense spar, Rumi rubbed her jaw and remarked, You've gotten faster, one afternoon. He massaged his ribs in response. And you still hit like a truck, he said. Remind me not to get on your bad side. She rested her elbows back. You've never left my good side. She merely grinned when he blinked at her. These kinds of moments were becoming more frequent. Persistent glances. The taunting. The things they don't talk about. However, neither has yet to cross that line. Until they found out. The evening before the results are announced. Rumi kicked her heels against the wood as she swung her legs over the railing of the stairs by the beach. Izuku was standing next to her, looking up at the stars with his arms folded. You nervous? She inquired. Not really, he said in response. I'm excited. I feel like no matter what happens, we gave it our all. She gave him a shoulder push. Still can't believe you crushed that thing. 0-pointers probably got PTSD. He scratched the back of his neck while laughing. You weren't so bad yourself. I thought you were gonna suplex it. Next time. With the ocean's steady rhythm behind them, they fell silent once more. Izuku then gave her a quick glance. So, tomorrow? Rumi gave a headshake. Not yet, he grinned. All right, when we know. The findings are in sunlight was streaming like golden ribbons through the windows of the Midoriya family on a warm spring afternoon. As Rumi and Izuku relaxed on the floor of the living room, Inko Midoriya hummed softly from the kitchen, and the smell of simmering katsudon from lunch permeated the air. Izuku, obviously too anxious to concentrate, was idly juggling a tennis ball between his hands as Rumi lay belly down on the carpet, leafing through a manga she had already read 5 times. Then, ding dong. Both of them leapt. Izuku blurted, scurrying to the front door, "That's it." However, Rumi leapt up before he could get to the handle. "Wait." Izuku hesitated, perplexed. "Huh?" Rumi was halfway out the door when she turned. "I'm going to get mine. I want us to open them together. Don't you dare open that without me." Before he could respond, she was gone. In the Usugami house. Rumi skidded to a stop just outside the door, and Madako blinked. Her grandmother said, "Your letter is already here," while displaying the envelope. With her chest heaving from the run, Rumi grabbed it with both hands. Madako inspected her with a knowing smirk. "So today's the day, huh, little bun?" "Yes," mumbled Rumi. "I can't hold back my feelings anymore." A wisp of white hair was gently brushed from Madako's granddaughter's eyes. "When you do, say it loud. Don't let it get lost in the wind." Rumi nodded slightly and ran away once more, holding the envelope close to her chest. Returning to the Midoriyas, the door exploded open once more as Izuku sat rigidly on the couch, still clutching his unopened envelope. "Got it." Rumi smiled, her cheeks a little red from the run. "All right, Green. Let's do this together." As they inserted the small discs into the player, they sat knee to knee. All Might was projected in all his booming, dramatic glory in twin beams of light. "I am here, as a teacher," Izuku gasped in surprise. Rumi grinned. Dramatic as ever. The hero praised each of them separately before starting his speech. With pride evident in his voice and shining in his blue eyes, All Might yelled, "Izuku Midoriya." Written test passed with a full 100%. I expected nothing less from such a hero fanboy. Practical exam passed flawlessly. First place overall. A masterful combination of combat ability and heroic instinct. A new record, 100 villain points. And 80 rescue points, so a grand total of 180 points, soundly beating my own 165. Izuku's mouth fell open. Wait. What? Rumi smiled broadly. "Holy crap, Zuku. You broke his record." His pride and enthusiasm were equal to those he felt for Izuku. Rumi Usugami. Written test passed with a respectable 95%. Not bad for a feral bunny. Practical exam passed with relative ease. Second place overall. A storm of precision, power, and agility. 100 villain points and 50 rescue points for a grand total of 150. "A good effort for sure," he exclaimed. Rumi's ears perked up. "Not bad for the rabbit, huh? Your teamwork in aiding Su Asui was noted as a highlight of hero spirit." Wide-eyed, they turned to each other and then started laughing. They had finally succeeded, and the burden of all their hard work had been lifted, together. With tears in her eyes, Inko hurried in and embraced them both tightly. "You too, I'm so proud." Izuku's phone then buzzed. He gave the screen a blink. "Toshi, he wants to meet us at Dagoba." Rumi's smile turned into a more contemplative one. "Then let's go." Sunset at Dagoba Beach. The beach was bathed in warm hues from the orange glow of the setting sun as they got closer to their old training grounds. Their place. The sand crunched beneath their shoes. Toshinori Yagi was standing close to the shore, slender and fragile, but his proud smile filled the whole beach. He said, "I'm proud of you both," as they drew nearer. "You earned this." Rumi sighed and crossed her arms. "You didn't answer your phone for days," she said. "I needed time. It's surprisingly hard to get your teaching license and I wanted your results to speak for themselves." Izuku felt his chest expand. "Thank you, Toshi, for everything." A hand was placed on each of their shoulders by Toshi. "No, thank you. You've both proven yourselves, not just as students, but as heroes. I'll see you at UA." He gave them one last nod, turned, and continued walking down the beach until he was completely engulfed by the horizon. The moment hung on. Keep quiet, gentle. With eyes on the waves, Rumi let out a slow exhale. "Hey, Zuku? Yeah? Sit with me for a bit." Together, they fell shoulder to shoulder in the sand. Izuku looked over and saw her hand twitching against her thigh. They sat in comfortable silence like that for a long time. When the sun finally set, the full moon took its place. His brow went up as he cocked his head. "Rumi, what's up?" Her eyes were a little softer than normal as she smiled. "I'll tell you in a sec." She traced tiny circles in the sand with her fingers as they touched its edge. Her energy didn't buzz or crackle with the wild restlessness he had learned to associate with her. silent and concentrated, it simmered. She said, "I've been thinking a lot lately," while continuing to focus on the surf. She looked at him then, her eyes blazing in the moonlight, and said, "Ever since we were little, when I first said you were mine, I meant it." Izuku blinked. His throat tightened with breath. "I didn't know what it meant back then," she continued, her voice less raspy as the wind brushed her locks, "just that I saw you and something clicked. Like the world made sense when you were around. And then we grew up. And you kept being amazing. Kept growing. And I kept thinking, he's still mine, but I never said it out loud." She glanced at her hand below, "Because I wasn't sure if I had the right to anymore." Izuku extended his hand, his warm, steady fingers grazing hers. "Rumi." She interrupted him with a gasping laugh. "Let me finish, please." He gave her a moment's silence by nodding. "I watched you throw yourself into our training and situation to help someone without hesitation. You've always been like that. And I hated it, because I knew you'd be the kind of hero everyone would look up to. The kind that makes people feel safe. The kind that changes the world." Her gaze met his, and nothing was holding her back. "But selfishly, I didn't want to share that version of you with the world, not before I said this." With her heart pounding in her chest, she inhaled. "I love you, Izuku. I've loved you for a long time. And I know we've always been close, but I want more. I want us. Not just the friendship, not just the bond we've built, but everything. If I'm charging into this future, I want you beside me. Always." Izuku gazed at her, stunned, not because he didn't anticipate it, but because it struck him like a meteor when he heard her say it. Her. The girl who once pulled him into the mud and gave him a fierce little glare to declare he was hers. He sensed it, too. Everything. He began, and then allowed the words to emerge from a place beyond his mind. His smile was powerful and filled with wonder. "I love you too, Rumi. I think I always have." Her cheeks turned red as she blinked and her ears perked up at what he said. "You were my first friend, my first partner, and my reason to get strong," he added in a quiet but confident voice. "And no matter how much I've changed, how strong I get, I always come back to you. You've been my center from the start." With a giddy, fierce laugh, she threw her arms around him and smiled as she knocked them both back into the sand. She whispered, "Damn right I have," in his ear. "You're mine, Izuku. Don't forget it." His arms clenched around her as he laughed, "Never could." For a brief moment, they lay there in the calm surf, listening to the waves and the stars above. It seemed as though the world itself was becoming more tranquil as the sound of the waves crashing subsided. With her red eyes still glimmering with that typical fire, but now tempered by something softer, something more open, Rumi gazed up at him, at risk. Izuku swallowed, looking from her lips to her eyes. His heart was racing, but not out of fear. Awe was in the air. She was the one. His voice was hardly audible above the wind as he said, "Hey, Rumi?" Her brows lifted slightly as she turned to face him. "Yeah?" After a brief moment of hesitation, his hand reached up and brushed a lock of silver hair behind her ear. "Can I kiss you?" She didn't tease for once. Don't snicker. Don't be sarcastic. Just a nod and a gentle inhale. "Yeah," she said in a whisper. "You better." Slowly leaning in, Izuku's breath blended with hers as his green eyes remained fixed on hers until the very end. As though they both understood how much this meant, their lips met in a delicate kiss that wasn't hurried or fierce. A kiss infused with years of history, silent looks, side-by-side conflicts, and stargazing. It was tentative, gentle, and brimming with a hopeful certainty. As though to finally say something, her thumb brushed his cheek as her hand reached up to cradle his jaw. Their foreheads pressed against each other as they separated, their breaths blending, their lips still tingling from the pressure of the moment. Rumi's smile returned, broad and slightly panting. "Took you long enough, Zuku." Izuku laughed, his cheeks flushed but his smile assured. "I had to be sure. You're everything, Ru." Her nose brushed his as she leaned closer. "Damn right I am, and now you're mine." In the sand, his fingers interlaced with hers. "I always was." They allowed the moment to settle, warm and genuine, in their own little world where the moon was high and the beach was bathed in silver light. It felt different in the days following the results. It was because something had finally clicked, not because something had changed. Izuku knew there was no turning back once Rumi kissed him, and to be honest, he didn't want to. They fit. Similar to lightning and thunder. Fire and sparks. And Rumi had formally ceased to act as though she wasn't obsessed now that they weren't dancing around it. It began with his clothing, of course. One morning, with a towel draped over his shoulder, he entered his room to discover Rumi, once more, curled up on his bed wearing his All Might hoodie. This time, her hands were covered by sleeves, and her face was buried deep in the collar as if she could breathe him in. As he said, "You know I'm running out of shirts," a smirk tugged at his lips. With mischievous eyes, Rumi peered over the hood's edge. "Good. I like wearing your scent. Pretty sure that counts as territorial behavior." "Damn right it is," she said with a smile as she pulled the hoodie closer. "You're mine now. Deal with it." His words, "I'm not complaining," came as he approached her and tousled her hair. "I like seeing you in my stuff. But you could at least pretend to ask first." She laughed. "Nah. This is more fun." Nor was it just the clothing. When they walked, she nudged his side. When they sat close, she nuzzled her nose into his shoulder. And when she thought he wasn't looking, she would even shamelessly sniff his neck. She had become noticeably more touchy. And Izuku was marking him in her own way. He gave her permission. Hell, he enjoyed it. His mother also took notice. On the couch, Inko noticed Rumi curled up next to Izuku, wearing his hoodie, with his arms wrapped around one of his. She simply gave a knowing smile. She said, "You two look good together," in a kind and encouraging tone. Rumi smirked after blinking. "I know." Izuku did not recoil. "Thanks, Mom." Later that day, Madako was already waiting with her arms crossed and an eyebrow raised when Rumi pulled Izuku back to her lunch spot. She remarked, "You haven't been here since yesterday. That means one of two things." Like a badge of honor, Rumi displayed her UA letter, second place. Madako grinned more broadly. "And the other thing?" Izuku put a delicate hand on Rumi's waist. "She's mine, officially." Madako gave one contented nod. About time. Aldera's last days. Although their final week of middle school passed slowly, the atmosphere had changed. Everyone was aware of who passed and who failed. Although the teachers didn't say it directly, there were rumors circulating in the hallways. Rumi and Izuku didn't show off or boast, but they didn't have to. It was them. Bakugo snapped because of that. It took place during lunchtime on the rooftop. With her head resting in Izuku's lap and her eyes closed as the sun warmed her face, Rumi was stretched out on a bench. The rooftop door slammed open as he was calmly and casually running his fingers through her hair and occasionally scratching her ears. With his hands in his pockets and his jaw clenched, Bakugo snarled, "You think you're better than me now?" Izuku did not even bat an eye. Looking up from his bento, he said, "No, I don't think I am. I know I beat you." Bakugo's gaze flickered. "You got lucky. Is that what helps you sleep at night?" With a sharp and menacing smile, Rumi slowly sat up. "Careful, Kachan. You're starting to sound bitter." Sparks ignited in Bakugo's palms. "You got something to say, rabbit?" "Yeah," she replied as she stood up and fixed him with her golden eyes. "Pick a fight with either of us, and you'll leave this rooftop with a limp." Izuku was standing next to her, his presence firm and unwavering. "Let it go, Bakugo. We're going to UA to be heroes, not rivals." Bakugo took a step back and sneered. "TCH. Enjoy your head start. I'll leave you both in the dust soon enough." Rumi snorted and folded her arms as he turned and strode away. "I swear, the way he talks? It's like he's begging to get his ass kicked." Izuku laughed. "He'll figure it out, or you won't. Either way, not our problem." "Damn right it's not." At Dagoba Beach later that evening. As the sun dipped low, the waves lazily lapped at the shore. Rumi was lying on the sand with his nose buried in the fabric, having stolen another shirt, this one of his sleeveless ones. Izuku commented, "You know," as he sat down beside her, "I could just start giving you my shirts. Would save me from constantly having to restock." She grinned without raising her gaze. "Where's the fun in that?" Izuku laughed and rested his hands back, allowing the wind to caress them. "You're unbelievable." She smirked and said, "I know," before glancing up at him. "And you're mine. That hasn't changed since the day we met." His eyes were warm and sure as he turned. "No arguments here." Then, as if breathing, he leaned in and gave her a kiss. Her hand touched the side of his neck, drawing him closer for a brief moment before their foreheads touched and they parted ways. "You're getting bold, Midoriya," she teasingly said. Against her lips, he grinned. "It's easy when I know you want it just as much." Time skip morning on the first day of UA Midoriya residence. Izuku was buttoning his immaculate UA uniform jacket in front of his bedroom mirror just as the sun was rising. It was crisp, clean, and tailored, and it fit like a glove. After making a small adjustment to the collar, he grabbed the green tie that Inko had left for him the previous evening. The smell of grilled eggs and fish wafted into his room downstairs. Inko called, "Breakfast's ready." With his bag slung over one shoulder and his sleeves rolled up, he descended the stairs with his typical cool assurance. Inko's hand went to her mouth as soon as she saw him after turning away from the stove. Her eyes were already misty as she sniffed, "My baby, you look so grown up." Izuku gave her a hug while laughing. "I'm still your baby, Mom. Just taller, stronger, and dating a girl who could punch a bus in half." He grinned. "Yeah, there's that," he said. During breakfast, they engaged in light conversation until Inko reached across the table and grasped his hand. "You're going to do great things, Izuku. I already know that, but today, just enjoy it. Have fun. Make memories. And maybe don't let Rumi intimidate the teachers on day one." "No promises," he said with a laugh. Usagiyama House, concurrently. Rumi frowned and pulled at the hem of her skirt. "Why the hell is this so short?" Madako sipped her tea and said, "It's standard, kid, from the other side of the room. And you've got the thighs most would kill for. Of course it's gonna hike up." With a moan, Rumi pulled on her jacket, buttoned it halfway, and faced the mirror. Ears perked, hair tied high, she inspected herself, then grinned. "Damn. I look good." "You look dangerous," stated Madako. "Just don't scare off your teachers. Or your classmates. Or that boyfriend of yours." Rumi gave an eye roll. "Please, Zuku loves it." Madako's eyebrows went up. "Still got that shirt of his hidden under your pillow?" Rumi muttered, "Maybe," and reached for her bag. "Gotta smell like him for luck." Upon approaching the door, Madako yelled, "Hey, Rumi." She pivoted. "I'm proud of you, and so would your mom. Go make her legacy proud too." Rumi nodded, and her face softened. "Yeah, I will." Later at the train station with his hands in his pockets and his bag slung over one shoulder, Izuku leaned against the column just outside the ticket gate. Despite the bustling early morning crowd, he remained composed, until something struck him in the back. "Zuku." Just as his legs locked around his waist and arms wrapped around his shoulders, he let out a laugh. With no shame at all, Rumi kissed his cheek and clung to him piggyback style. With his hands beneath her thighs to keep her balanced, he asked, "You trying to knock me over on day one?" With her chin resting on his shoulder, she smirked and said, "Just claiming what's mine, miss me." He said, "Every second, without pausing." With that swagger of confidence, she slid off his back and landed beside him. "So, huh? Think they're ready for us?" he said, trying to get his collar fitted. Not even a little. Together, they claimed a window seat on the train. As the train accelerated, she leaned into his side and watched the city pass by in a blur. He inquired, "You excited?" Her response was, "Hell yeah, nervous?" "Nope. Not with you at my side." She grinned, "Damn right." Then she said, "We're gonna run that school, Zuku. Just you watch." They beat quietly together. His eyes glowed as he turned to face her. "I believe it." Initial thoughts at the station. The train slowed to a stop and gave one last ding. Despite the girl clinging to his back like an energetic backpack, Izuku took the lead and walked with ease. With her chin resting on his shoulder, Rumi tightened her hold. "You know, I could get used to this. You make a damn good ride." He chuckled. "You're gonna spoil me before we even get to class." She grinned and gave him another cheek kiss, saying, "You are spoiled. I just call it appreciation. You've got the muscles. Use 'em." "I also need oxygen," he said in jest, bending his neck a bit. "I'd like to breathe on the first day." With a thump, she fell off his back and stretched. "Fine, but don't expect me to walk the whole day." The two walked through UA's gates. High school, the institution's majesty towering over them like a monument to aspirations. Rumi gazed up at the enormous structure. "Looks like it belongs in a movie." "Big place," said Izuku. "Big goals." She looked at him mischievously. "And big dorks trying to become heroes." He pushed her. "Well, this dork's your dork." "Damn right he is." They halted in front of the massive sliding door marked 1A as they got closer to the classroom building. Rumi eyed the size. "Seriously? What kind of student needs a door like this?" "Maybe someone turns into a kaiju," Izuku suggested. "Let's just hope the people inside aren't all monsters." The door opened smoothly. Tension snapped like a taut wire inside. In the middle of the storm were two boys. Naturally, Bakugo was one of them. He was already glaring as if someone had set off a fuse. The other was a newcomer, tall and well-groomed in his own UA school uniform, complete with a red tie. His arms were slicing the air with precise motions, his rectangular glasses glinting with each movement, and his posture was rigid. The boy insisted, "You must apologize for your behavior. This is a professional environment." "Shut it, extra," snarled Bakugo. When the two newcomers walked into the room, the yelling stopped. The student with blue hair sharply adjusted his glasses and blinked. He said, "Ah, excellent timing," and moved forward. "You must be Rumi Usagiyama and Izuku Midoriya. You held the top 2 scores in the entrance exam. A remarkable performance." Izuku nodded courteously. "Thanks. I'm Midoriya. Nice to meet you." The boy bowed formally and stiffly. "Tenya Iida, from Sumei Private Academy. I'm honored to be in your class." With disbelief, Rumi cocked her head. "You're wound tighter than a drum." The firm statement, "I believe in discipline and proper conduct," came from Iida. She grinned. "So, you're the class rulebook. I'll take that as a compliment." "I wouldn't." Rumi leaned in close and whispered in Izuku's ear, but Izuku could hardly contain his laughter. "This place is already a riot." Then she noticed another person on the other side of the room, Froggy. A girl with big eyes, dark green hair, and a blank, perceptive face sat toward the back. After blinking once, she gave a slight smile. "Rumi." Taking hold of Izuku's hand, Rumi pulled him in the direction of the well-known face. "This is my battle zone buddy. Tsuyu Asui," she said with a smile. "Froggy, this is my man." "Hi, Midoriya. I remember you from after the exam," Tsuyu replied. Rumi was the one who did most of the damage during the exam. She crushed a bot so hard it broke another one. Izuku nodded and said, "Yeah, it's nice to see you again. That definitely sounds like her." "Exactly," said Rumi with pride. Then, behind him, she noticed movement. As she walked into the classroom, a girl with brown hair looked around the room before focusing on Izuku. Her expression brightened. "Hey, you're the one who saved me from the 0-pointer." Izuku grinned. "Yeah, glad you're okay. Uraraka, I'm Ochako Uraraka," she said as she approached him. "That was amazing, seriously. I don't know how you even got there in time." Before he could reply, Ochako was given a subtle once-over by Rumi, who raised a brow. "She's cute," she said in a low, flat voice. Izuku smiled softly as he turned to face her and took her hand. "Yeah, but you're mine. And I'm yours. Nothing changes that." She gave that a little, contented smile. "Damn right." Bakugo, meanwhile, observed the conversation from his chair, his shoulders tense. "Someone you saved? Deku? That is completely nonsensical. He was expected to have no peculiarities. So how?" The door silently slid open before the mood could change again, but only Rumi and Izuku looked. Without the rest of the class noticing, a man in a yellow sleeping bag slithered through the doorway. After removing himself from the bag, he got to his feet. His unkempt black hair hung about his sunken, weary eyes like curtains. His body was slouched, his face gaunt. He was dressed in dark clothing and had a loosely wound scarf around his neck. In some way, his presence was silently perilous. He closed the door behind him and looked around the room blankly. "Homeroom hasn't even started, and you're already loud." Finally, a few students turned to see him. "I'm Shota Aizawa, your homeroom teacher." He took a tablet out of the scarf and pressed a button. "Put on your gym uniforms, we're doing a quirk assessment test." Many pupils blinked in perplexity. Someone said, "Wait, what about orientation?" "Orientation?" Deadpanned Aizawa. "We're not here to babysit future pros. If you want to waste time, you can go to a different school." Rumi bent toward Izuku. "I really like him. You like anyone who tells people to shut up. That's the best kind of authority." The students dispersed into their individual locker rooms after being given their gym uniforms. Locker room for boys. Unaware that he was being watched from the side, Izuku lowered his gym shirt over his well-defined torso. "Yo, bro," called a happy voice. "Didn't expect to see someone else here with actual muscle." Izuku turned to face a red-haired man with a solid, lean build and a sharp-toothed smile. His energy radiated warmth, and his eyes glistened with excitement. Saying, "I'm Eijiro Kirishima," he extended his fist. "Manly to meet you." Izuku gave the fist bump back with a smile. "Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you too." Nodding at his arms, Kirishima questioned, "You train or something? You've got a solid frame. Wouldn't mind hitting the weights with you sometime." "Yeah, sure, I've been working out for a few years now." From a nearby bench came another voice. Geez, I thought I was doing okay with my routine, but now I feel like a twig. The speaker was a blond man wearing a gym shirt with a bolt motif and an easygoing demeanor. He pouted teasingly and pointed at Izuku. Denki Kaminari. You're kinda ripped, man. Low-key jealous. Izuku chuckled. Hey, you look pretty fit to me. Denki became alert. Cool, cool. Just don't make me stand next to you during the tests. I look like your before photo. The locker room was filled with laughter, and Izuku had already begun to build relationships. Girls' locker room Rumi, meanwhile, had already started wearing her gym shirt when she noticed Tsuyu and Ochako conversing at a bench. She smirked and said, "You two look like you're talking about me," as she sat down next to them. Slyly, "Only about your man," Ochako said. Rumi grinned. "Yeah, he's something, huh?" Tsuyu's head cocked. "He's strong. I bet you make a good team." "Damn right," Rumi remarked, pulling her hair back into a loose updo. She winked at Ochako, saying, "Don't worry. I'm not threatened. He already told me I'm the only one for him." Ochako blinked. "What? No, I'm not trying to steal." "I know. Chill. I'm not the jealous type. I'm the break your legs and toss you over a roof type." When the girls started laughing, the tension was broken. The door to the locker room opened at that moment. With horns sticking out of her curly hair, Mina Ashido strode in, bubbling and pink. Her nose twitched like a bloodhound as she stopped in the middle of her step. She yelled, "Hold up! Is there already a couple in this class?" The girls looked at each other. "Oh yeah," Rumi uttered, slanting back like a monarch on her throne. "Name's Rumi. Got myself a man, strong, sweet, chivalrous, built like a fantasy." As her uniform drifted in by itself, Toru Hagakuri's voice added a little extra. Who is he?" Rumi extended her arms. "Izuku Midoriya. Sweet green-haired stud with a power that makes the earth cry uncle." Mina gave a little squeal. "Okay, yes, we need the tea. Did he ask you out? Did you kiss? What's the vibe?" With pride shining in her eyes, Rumi smiled and said, "It feels like he's mine and he's not leaving. And yeah, we've kissed. A few times." Sue even grinned a little. Rumi simply shrugged. "Hey, I don't hold back, you'll see." Training grounds. Quirk evaluation exam on a round dirt field, the class stood outside. Aizawa was in front of them, holding a tablet and wearing a scarf loosely around his shoulders. Bakugo glared at the back of Izuku's head while crossing his arms. His tension was evident even though he had not yet spoken. "We'll start with a simple test," Aizawa declared. "The quirk assessment. No frills, no holds barred. Let's see what you're capable of." Lazily, he threw a softball into the air and caught it. "Midoriya, you're up first." Izuku took a step forward. "Me? You placed top in the entrance exam. Let's see if it was a fluke. Use your quirk. Go all out." Bakugo grinned. "This'll be good." Aizawa looked over at him. "Don't get your hopes up." Izuku clenched his fists and let out a breath. Green lightning crackled to life across his limbs, and his aura flickered. His power increased, and the wind changed. Muttered, "Full cowl, 25%, taking a breath, he coiled up and roared the ball into the air. Like a shooting star, the ball vanished into the clouds. Beep 2,146 meters. The class let out a gasp. Aizawa's eyebrows even raised a little. Then Rumi whistled. "Damn, baby. Holy crap," mumbled Denki. Bakugo's gaze flickered. "What the, Deku?" His hand crackled as he lunged forward. "You're gonna tell me what that was." ZWWIP. Mid-leap, Aizawa's scarf encircled him. His eyes were red, and his hair stood up. Izuku's eyes widened and he began to mutter about the pro-hero Eraserhead while Rumi smiled approvingly at him. "Try that again," he said sternly, "and I'll expel you faster than you can say, boom." Bakugo snarled but backed off. After letting him go, Aizawa faced the class. "This isn't a game. Anyone who thinks this is fun can leave." Denki held up her hand. But it kinda looked fun," Jiro muttered foolishly and gave a facepalm. Aizawa's tone fell like a guillotine. "No, it's not. Whoever ranks last in this assessment will be expelled." The class went silent. Mina let out a gasp. "Wait, what?" Momo tensed. "That's not in the rulebook." Izuku remained composed. Rumi smiled. "He ain't bluffin'. Good. Time to earn our spots." The examinations start 50-meter dash. Izuku blurred past the sensors by using full cowl at a constant 15%. "Rumi, She sprinted so quickly that she created a shockwave, going full Beast Bunny. Strength of grip. Izuku laughed and broke the device, and Kirishima cheered. Rumi? She flexed and cracked hers. Oops. Endurance, long jump, and side steps are all new displays of strength. Izuku struck a balance between power and grace. Unrestrained in her aggression, Rumi blasted her way through. Their light-hearted taunts demonstrated their chemistry. She smiled and said, "Better keep up, Green," he retorted, "only if you slow down, Bun Bun." Aizawa appeared to be mentally taking notes as well. Then everyone else had to toss the ball. Mineta made an effort to impress, but she was sidetracked by each girl. "Whoa, Rumi, you should stretch more," thud. She kicked him in the face with a rock. "Eyes up, Grape Boy, or I'll pop him." The findings. The screen came to life as the final scores were calculated. 1. Midoriya Izuku 2. Usagiyama Rumi 3. Yaoyorozu Momo 4. Todoroki Shoto 5. Bakugo Katsuki 20. Mineta Minoru Quiet. "Mineta," said Aizawa firmly, "pack your things." Everyone let out a gasp. Yelling, Kaminari said, "Wait, seriously?" Momo moved forward. "Isn't that a bit excessive?" "No," said Aizawa. "This isn't daycare. If you can't control your behavior or pull your weight, you're gone." Mineta let out a cry, but it was obvious. "Rumi?" She simply rolled her shoulders. "Good riddance." Leaning closer, Izuku muttered, "I was hoping someone would toss him first." She grinned. "Give me another day." Aizawa's voice remained icy and direct as he escorted Mineta out of the training field. "Change out of your gym uniforms and return to the classroom. I'll be there shortly." A little taken aback by the suddenness, the class fell silent. Mineta's astonished and moaning objections reverberated momentarily before being cut off as the doors shut behind them. Locker room for boys. Steam practically poured out of Bakugo's ears as he marched toward Midoriya, his boots stomping. He stood nose to chest with Izuku and growled, "You think you're hot shit now, huh, Deku? That stunt out there." Calm and unconcerned, Izuku completed putting on his shirt before looking directly into Bakugo's blazing eyes. His response was, "I'm just doing my best, that's what we're all here for, right?" Bakugo seemed even more irritated by the calm tone, but before he could respond, Kirishima intervened and placed a firm arm between them, saying, "Hey, back off, man." He had bright red spiky hair, a strong, athletic build, and a smile that was somehow both fearless and friendly. "We're all classmates here. Don't start beef on day one." "Yeah," said Denki Kaminari, grinning lazily as he put on his shirt. A black streak, resembling a lightning bolt, ran through his blonde hair, which was arranged in an untidy fringe. "Save the explosions for the villains, not the locker room. Also, dude, how are your arms that ripped already? You've been working out for the last, 5 years?" Izuku chuckled uncomfortably. "Kind of, long story." Kirishima gave Izuku a back pat while laughing. "Yo, that throw earlier? Insane. We really gotta train together sometime. I think we could push each other to new heights." Izuku grinned appreciatively. "Sounds great. I'm always down for a good training session." Girls' locker room. Momo Yaoyorozu made elegant, precise adjustments to her UA uniform. She was tall and graceful, with long black hair pulled back in a chic ponytail, and she exuded the poise of someone who had grown up in a wealthy household. She didn't look like a high school teen. She looked like royalty. She said, her brows furrowed in shock, "I can't believe Aizawa-sensei actually expelled someone on the first day." Suyu simply said, "I can," as she zipped up her uniform. "Aizawa-sensei does seem like someone who makes idle threats." Still, Ochako remarked as she smoothed her skirt, "It's kinda harsh, right? I mean, expelling someone already?" Unfazed, Rumi rolled her shoulders and cracked her knuckles. He's been making lewd little comments under his breath all day. Guy was a ticking time bomb of perviness. Good riddance. Mina paused in the middle of her pose in front of the mirror and said, "Wait, seriously?" Even in a room full of eccentrics, she stood out with her pink skin and wild cotton candy hair. "Girl, you should have led with that." No wonder Aizawa-sensei was done with him. There were echoes of agreement in the locker room. Out of nowhere, a voice said, "Yikes, glad I didn't hear that." It was the voice of the invisible girl, Toru Hagakure. Her entire body was hidden, save for the slight shimmer of her hands when she moved quickly, and her school uniform seemed to float in place. Even with her condition, there was always a cheerful, friendly energy in her bubbly tone. "Sounds like it was more than fair," Toru continued. Exactly, Rumi remarked as she slipped her sleeves up. One creep down. Now we can focus on the fun stuff, like kicking ass. Another voice joined in near the corner. A low, amused tone said, so, I'm hearing talk of a couple already in 1A? One of Kyoka Jiro's headphones hung loosely from her earlobe as she stood with her arms folded and leaned back against the wall. She wore her uniform casually, a little unkempt, and had short purple hair and half-lidded eyes. Her relaxed demeanor and punk style exuded coolness. That you, Jiro? Smirked Rumi as she asked. Depends. That you, bunny girl everyone's buzzing about? Rumi gave a snort. Guilty. Jiro grinned. Not bad. Let's spar sometime. See if that speed of yours holds up to some sick baselines. You're on. The corridor beyond the locker room. Izuku waited with his hands behind his back outside the girls' locker room. With a glomp that almost knocked him back, Rumi bounded at him like a white blur as the door opened. She teasingly said, You're late, Greenie, I've been here for, oof. Like a minute, he said, laughing as he easily caught her and placed her down. She turned him around, jumped onto his back, and put her arms around his shoulders, saying, Good. That means you're still fresh enough for this piggyback time. Izuku made no hesitation at all. Grinning, he changed his position and hooked his arms beneath her thighs. Yes, ma'am. With their arms pumping in inflated outrage, Iida yelled, That is highly inappropriate for school grounds. As they passed him, We are representatives of. Mina called, Lighten up, Specs. They're adorable. Let them be adorable. A number of students laughed, and Rumi gave Iida a tongue out. This is what school spirit looks like, she smiled. En route to class, a few students caught up to them as they moved down the corridor. Mina teased, Yo, new power couple alert, as she walked next to them. You two always this cute? You have no idea, Rumi said with a smile as she pressed her cheek to Izuku's. Mina waggled her eyebrows and teased, You're not worried he'll run off with that floaty girl, though? Rumi snorted in jest. He's mine, I'm his. That's the deal. Besides, did you see the way he was looking at me out there? Ain't no room for second place. Izuku blushed but gave a firm nod. She's the only one for me. Toru added, as her uniform sleeves clapped. You guys are gonna give me cavities. Careful, Jiro said, his earbuds bouncing. Keep flirting that hard, you'll be the new class idols before lunch. I can live with that, said Rumi, returning to the classroom. A few minutes later, Aizawa came in, his capture weapon coiled around his shoulders once more. He looked around the classroom with weary eyes. Everyone, take your seats. Every student's name was already labeled when the classroom layout was made public. Izuku and Rumi happened to be sitting in the middle row, window side, right next to each other. Rumi said, I see Destiny's doing its thing again, as she slid into her seat with a casual kick to one foot. Izuku merely grinned. Lucky us. As I said before, Aizawa started with her arms folded. This is UA, not some playground. The syllabus is intense. You'll be working harder than you've ever worked in your life. Get used to being exhausted, but also, get used to excelling. He distributed a thick folder containing the class syllabi, rules, expectations, and future class schedules. Read it. Memorize it. We begin hero training first tomorrow afternoon after lunch. For now, you're dismissed. Momo leaned forward and raised her eyebrows at Rumi as chairs scraped and students started to disperse. He really did expel someone. Rumi simply shrugged and leaned closer to Izuku. Told ya. Creeps don't last long around me. Grinning, Izuku reached over and squeezed her hand. Izuku and Rumi walked hand in hand down the hall as the school day ended earlier than planned. Rumi's mood had significantly improved since the surprise assessment test and the possibility of expulsion were over. So, Rumi remarked while idly stretching. We sneak off, find a vending machine, and chill on the roof till dinner. Izuku grinned. Sounds perfect. A voice called out to them from behind before they could go very far. Hey lovebirds! Mina exclaimed, almost leaping in their direction. You guys in a rush or what? Rumi's eyebrow went up. Not really, what's up? Some of us were thinking of hitting that ramen joint just off campus, you know, the cozy one with the cat mascot? Since Aizawa-sensei let us out early, I figured it'd be fun to bond a little, she grinned. You in? Rumi and Izuku glanced at each other. It was tempting to think of a peaceful moment by myself, but... Sure, smirking, Rumi said. Why not? Haven't seen what kind of weirdos we got in this class yet. Mina clapped and hurried down the hallway, saying, Sweet, I'll round up the rest. Within the classroom, Mina said, "Yo, quick head count," and stuck her head back into 1A. "Who's down for ramen?" Kirishima threw a fist in the air and exclaimed, "Me, at once." "I'm in," Jiro said, half shrugging. "Could use some carbs after all that test." "Count me in too," asserted Denki. "I could eat 5 bowls right now." As she rearranged her bag, Momo remarked, "I guess I could join as well. I've never been to a ramen shop with classmates before." Toru exclaimed, "Ooh, sounds fun," and hopped in place, or rather, her uniform did. "I'd like to come," Ochako grinned. Iida stood erect and proudly as she said, "I would also like to attend, but alas, I must get home to help my father, but I must commend you. It is important to foster camaraderie with one's classmates." Tsuyu just gave a nod. "Sure. I like ramen." "Pass," Bakugo muttered as he picked up his bag and made his way out. "Don't need friends. Don't need noodles." "I'm also going to pass," said Shoto Todoroki calmly as he stood by the window. More students began to leave as the class assembled at UA's front gate. Izuku was the only one taller than Mezzo Shoji, who loomed over the others as he approached in silence. His face was concealed by a gray mask, and his 6 powerful arms were folded neatly. His posture was reserved and respectful, despite his intimidating size. "Social activity is beneficial. I'll come." Next to arrive was Fumikage Tokiyami, who spoke in a deep, dramatic voice while tilting his dark, bird-like head slightly. A dark shadow emerged and said, "If the food nourishes both the body and the soul, I accept." According to the dark bird, that's Fumi's way of saying he's famished. Sure," Mashirao Ojiro replied, arching his strong tail in the back. He exuded a martial artist's aura and was composed and toned. "I could eat." Black-haired and beaming, Honta Siro joined with a casual swing of his arms. "Yeah, I'm in. I heard they're spicy misa's killer." "Wee, I shall join too," Yuga Aoyama exclaimed, putting a hand to his chest in a stunning pose. The boy's flamboyant uniform and glittering belt made him literally sparkle. Every star deserves to dine in style. Rikido Sato, who was big and strong, came last. "If they've got sweets or desserts, count me in." Now that almost the entire class was together, apart from Bakugo, Ilda and Todoroki, they started to walk into town. The ramen shop's walk, there was a lot of laughter and light conversation as the group strolled along the cherry blossom-lined stone path. Denki took out his phone and began to browse the music selection. "Hey, Jiro. Check this out. The new Electric Howl album dropped yesterday." Jiro leaned in and exclaimed, "No way." Her usual coolness was broken by her excitement. "You listen to them too?" "Religiously," smiled Denki. "Track 6 is fire." Interested, Momo inquired, "You're both fans?" "I've read about their compositions, but I've never listened before. What genre are they?" Jiro had glistening eyes. "They're a mix of punk rock and techno fusion. Trust me, you'll love the live drums." "Then please, send me the playlist," Momo said as she took her phone out. Mina, Ochako, Tsuyu, and Toru, meanwhile, were engaged in a heated debate concerning stuffed animals and accessories. "Oh my gosh, did you see the new bunny keychains in the campus store?" Toru sighed. Mina exclaimed, "I got 3 of them," with pride. Tsuyu went on, "They had a frog one too, it was weirdly accurate." When Ochako said, "Anything cute is dangerous around you guys," she laughed, "You're all gonna bankrupt yourselves." Rumi strolled alongside Kirishima and Izuku in the rear of the group, with his arm softly wrapped around her waist. She was obviously happy as she leaned into him casually. Kirishima looked at her and said, "You train every day too?" Saying, "Twice a day, minimum," Rumi gave him a smile. "I get cranky if I go too long without moving." Kirishima laughed. "Same, I can't sit still too long either. You ever try mixing resistance with explosive movement? Builds both strength and speed." Rumi pricked her ears. In order to participate in the conversation more effectively, she slipped out of Izuku's arm and asked, "Now that's a language I speak. You got a favorite circuit?" "Oh yeah. I'll trade you routines if you're down." They pumped out training methods and challenges, bumped fists, and began exchanging notes like old gym friends. A few minutes later, Kirishima's smile widened. "You know, I think you're the sister I never had but always wanted. We'd wreck any training room together." Rumi gave a snort. "TCH, about time someone other than Zuku kept up." "Yeah, you're all right, Red." Izuku looked back a few paces ahead and saw the two engaged in lively banter, flexing mid-story and hurling playful insults. With pride, he grinned to himself. She's making friends already, he said in a kind whisper. Mina, who had drifted back to see what was causing the excitement, tilted her head beside him. You're not worried about someone else stealing your thunder? Izuku gave her a steady, composed look. Nah, she's mine, and I'm hers. Mina grinned after blinking. Dang, you two are seriously ride or die, huh? Rumi caught up and put her arm around Izuku's waist before he could respond. That red guy? Total bro, I like him. Izuku laughed. Glad you're making friends. He seems like someone you'd spar with for fun. You know it. Might rope you both into a three-way match. Oh, now that sounds dangerous, only if you blink. Sparks of curiosity finally, as the ramen shop appeared halfway down the street, someone inquired. Hey, not to be nosy or anything, Zero began, but why do you two always seem to be touching? You're like, always holding hands or leaning on each other. Mina stated, they're dating, dude, as though it were the most immediately apparent thing in the world. Yeah, I figured that, explained Zero, but like, is there more to it? Rumi laughed. Rabbit instincts. Silence fell for a beat. Huh? Blinked Denki. She explained, my quirk has a lot of rabbit stuff in it, as she tapped her ear. And rabbits? We're big on scent. So I'm just, trying to get my scent all over him. Let everyone know he's mine. Izuku immediately blushed. And vice versa, Rumi smirked and slammed her head against his shoulder. Getting his scent on me calms me down. Makes me feel safe. It's instinctual. Ribbit. I get it, insisted Suyu. I have frog instincts too. When I get anxious, I'll crouch or cling to people. It's not something I think about, it just happens. Toru remarked, that's actually really sweet, weird, but sweet. Man, quirks are wild, Ojiro whispered. Somebody get a camera, Mina said to Ochako in a whisper. We're living in a rom-com. As the ramen shop came into full view, they all started laughing. Rumi smiled. Time to eat, time for ramen. The ramen shop was a simple, dimly lit place with wooden booths, paper lanterns, a small doghouse in front with a gray-furred cat, and the aroma of garlic and broth filling the air. In order to accommodate everyone, they had to push a few tables together, but the tumultuous atmosphere somehow enhanced the experience. She claimed her seat next to her boyfriend, her ears flicking with satisfaction as she and Izuku slid into the far corner of the table. Mina, who was practically bouncing with anticipation, plopped across from them. Momo, Ochako, Toru, and Su took up positions close to her. Denki and Kirishima claimed the other side of the table. Zero, Ojiro, Shoji, and even Tokiyami sat on the edge, quiet but inquisitive, while Jiro sat next to Momo, earbuds out for once. Yuga used the occasion to sit at the end of the table and put a napkin in his lap with style. The directives Rumi swiftly raised her hand and exclaimed, 2 pork miso, 1 for Izuku and 1 for herself. Kirishima said, you eat as much as me, with a smile. Rumi responded, gotta fuel the beast, bumping her shoulder against Izuku, who simply laughed, caressed her hair, and scratched one of her ears, making her thump her foot in gratitude. Jiro stuck with plain shoyu. Denki ordered a spicy bowl that he instantly regretted, and Tokiyami ordered cold noodles with a gentle, poetic air. My power thrives in contrast, heat dulls the soul. The other members of the table then added their own orders. Silence fell for a beat. Dude, said Denki in a whisper, that was awesome. Collective feelings, the energy exploded once the bowls hit the table. Somehow, Denki, Jiro, and Momo got into a quarrel about which rock band of the decade was the best. It's totally voltage crisis, Denki declared. Overrated, retorted Jiro. Crimson Howl's instrumentation is next level. Unexpectedly, Momo contributed with flawless knowledge of music theory. Actually, Crimson Howl uses a progression rooted in classical symphony structures. I find them quite impressive. Whoa, blinked Denki. Remind me not to argue music with either of you. Mina, Ochako, Su, and Toru, meanwhile, were deep in conversation about their favorite snacks, adorable animals, and adorable accessories. I want a keychain with a little rabbit in a hoodie, Toru replied. Mina squealed. Oh my gosh, I have one of those. Su's head cocked. I like frogs, obviously. But sloths are kind of underrated, they have a vibe. The brothers Kirishima struck Izuku's bowl with his chopsticks. Bro, if I'd known I'd be eating with a guy who bodied a 0-pointer and had a badass bunny girlfriend on day 1, I'd have dressed up. Izuku chuckled. It's been a wild couple of weeks. Zero added his voice. You're both scary athletic. I saw you during the tests. Made me rethink my stretch game. And the way she attacked the quirk assessment was scary in a good way. Shoji nodded simply in respect, his calm yet firm demeanor somehow reassuring. You're strong. Both of you, it's good to know. Ojiro continued, that kind of strength is impressive. Do you train together often? Every day, winking, Rumi said. Well, unless we're wrestling. The laughter and moans erupted around the table. Bringing the night to an end, the group found an easy calm as they refilled their drinks and slurped the last of the noodles. Denki's words caused even Tokiyami to smile a little. Even though the class was just getting started, the groundwork had already been laid. Shared laughs, shared food, and shared battles. Rumi tightened her arm around Izuku's as the ramen shop's laughter subsided and classmates started to separate into pairs and trios. With streetlights blinking on with a warm hum, the sky above them had turned that gentle lavender blue of early evening. Rumi said, well, that was fun, with a little flick of her ears. Didn't think I'd actually like this many people. Izuku grinned and, although he had to shorten his long strides, kept up with her. Yeah, they're really something. I'm glad we went. She pressed a little closer to his side and mumbled, I'm still glad we're out of there though. Too loud. And Kirishima almost made me choke on my noodles when he started yelling about protein powder ramen. Izuku chuckled. He's got passion. She smiled and corrected, idiot energy, but the good kind. En route to the station, their footsteps reverberated on the sidewalk as they crossed a silent street. Rumi scowled every time she looked up at him, way up. Can't believe I'm dating a walking skyscraper. Izuku's cheeks colored as she looked down. You like it? I do, she said, swishing her tail. Makes it easy to do this. Rumi pulled his arm and leapt before he could respond, koala-like latching on and hooking one leg around his side. He caught her beneath the thighs with almost no effort. As she clung to him, Izuku said, this is kidnapping, in between giggles. This is being short and in love, she corrected smugly, clutching his shoulder with her chin. You're my personal tree. With a playful sigh, he repositioned his grip. You know people are gonna stare. Let him, she responded. I want them to know. The train journey, the two found a seat in a corner of the train, which was thankfully quiet. With her smaller frame curled languidly against his chest, Rumi had completely taken over his lap. As she eased into his warmth, her ears began to droop and twitch occasionally. Her breathing slowed a bit, so Izuku put his chin on her head and played with her long white hair while grinning softly. You sleepy? She muttered, Just comfy, you make a good pillow, Zuku. He laughed. I try. On the train, they didn't speak much, only gentle looks, soft touches. He put his hand around her as if it were instinctive. Reaching Rumi's house, her house was located off a peaceful side street. Madoka peered from the kitchen as they entered. She grinned and said, well, look who's late. Had to pry you two apart from the hip. Rumi hurriedly said, he was the one who wouldn't let go, and winked at Izuku. Izuku said, I have no defense, laughing. Madoka gave a nod, obviously amused. You staying for dinner, Izuku? Nope, Rumi interrupted, taking hold of his hand. He's just stopping by. The two vanished upstairs, and Madoka arched an eyebrow. In the room of Rumi, the door closed with a click. With a dramatic sigh, Rumi collapsed onto her bed. Izuku paused to look around, grinning subtly. Her chamber was very roomy. The soft, dusky mauve paint job on the walls was obviously Madoka's doing more than hers. One wall was lined with posters, most of them old martial arts movie prints, female pro heroes, or fight promos. The blankets were spread out in a haphazard pile of lavender, gray, and black, and her bed was low to the floor. Through a cracked open window, a punching bag swayed gently in the corner of the room, hanging from the ceiling. On a little rack by her closet, she had her resistance bands and weights arranged neatly. A few framed pictures of Rumi with Madoka, some faded childhood ones, and a recently added one of her and Izuku from the beach were on top of a bookshelf filled with manga. There was just enough order to demonstrate her concern and enough mess to demonstrate that she lived there. My legs are tired. Carrying all that charm around school was exhausting. Izuku grinned as he leaned against the wall, and you had me carry you half the day. Exactly, she said with a smile. That's what boyfriends are for. She sat up and instinctively reached for him as he approached. She wrapped her fingers around his waist and pulled him down until he was sitting next to her. Then she straddled him this time and slowly climbed into his lap. Rumi pressed her forehead against his as she leaned forward. You're not just my boyfriend, you know. His heart thumping, he whispered, oh, you're my favorite scent. My best sparring partner. My soft place to fall. Her tone became gentler. Mine, Zuko. You get that? He sighed, I do, and then planted a kiss on her lips. It moved slowly. Deep. Her hands found the back of his neck and pulled him in, making him feel sweeter at first but then more hungry. Even as she pressed closer to him, his hands were mindfully resting on her waist. Only when air became necessary did they separate. Rumi's ears perked up and her cheeks flushed as she blinked up at him. If you weren't so damn noble, I'd never let you leave. He gave a shaky, low laugh. Trust me, it's not easy. They kissed again, more tenderly. Then, with one last playful grin, Rumi climbed off his lap. Go. Before I change my mind. Returning home, Izuku got there right before dinner. His favorite meal was already plated when Inko welcomed him with a warm embrace. How was school? Kind of perfect, he said, grinning uncontrollably. He lay in bed with his phone later that night. Izuku, I swear, I'll dream of you. Rumi, better. I will also dream about you. Your scent is already missed. Izuku, in the morning, we'll take care of that. Rumi, oh, of course we will. Tree trunk, night. Izuku, bunny, good night. Bizbzzz. With one eye opening to discover his phone vibrating with a message from a very familiar name, Izuku moaned softly, having enjoyed sleeping in since he no longer had to get up early to clean a beach or train with an intense old man. Rumi. Broccoli head, get up and shine. I'm up already. Don't force me to get you out of bed. P.S. Another piggyback is mine. Take it easy. He rubbed his eyes and sat up, grinning drowsily. Izuku. Oh powerful bunny queen, you're already in motion. Piggyback has already been approved. You must pay for one coffee. Rumi. Agree. 1 cup, 1 ride, 1 kiss. I'll see you in 10. The Midoriya house without even knocking, Rumi waltzed through the front door, practically beaming with energy. Morning, Inko. Inko said, good morning, Rumi dear, with warmth. You look like you're ready to run laps around the city. I am, she smiled. But first, gotta get my sleepy tree over there moving. Izuku came out with his shirt half tucked in and his hair still wet from a hastily taken shower. Rumi teased, you missed a button, and jumped over to fix it. Then, with lightning speed, she patted his cheek and stole a kiss from his lips. Now let's go. With a laugh, he said, piggyback already? Obviously, she said with a grin. It's now a standard morning ritual. Heading to the UA, Izuku had to carry his girlfriend to the train station once more. With each step, Rumi's ears flopped softly as she rested her chin on his shoulder. She laced her fingers loosely across his chest and occasionally nudged him for no other reason than to annoy him. You like this, she sarcastically remarked. I do, he said, his cheeks flushed. It's kind of adorable. You're lucky I don't make you hop like me. Don't give you ideas, got it? A routine of casual affection and playful jabs was already developing between them as they laughed and joked throughout the entire ride to the station. Arrival of the train at UA, they met Sue and Ochako at the station. Ochako said, morning, Midoriya, Usagiyama, grinning when he saw Rumi holding onto Izuku's back. Sue asked bluntly, Ribbit, do you ever walk bunny? Saying, only if I got a froggy, Rumi grinned. I got a tall, dorky steed now. Izuku made an awkward wave, but it was obvious that he didn't mind. We're working on her definition of cardio. On the way in, the four of them talked about yesterday's ramen shop and laughed about Denki's unintentional inhalation of a spicy pepper that caused him to turn beet red. More classmates joined the group as they got closer to UA, Kirishima, with his typical bro energy. Momo, who chose to ride the train with her new friends instead of her driver. Mina, who was full of energy. And even a sleepy Jiro, who had her earbuds in. 1. A classroom. Iida was at the front of the room, already thrashing his arms to try to bring the room back into order, as soon as they walked in. Good morning, everyone, please be seated in an orderly fashion, shirts tucked, attention forward. Dryly, Kyoka yelled, why are you the only one standing? Tenya stumbled, blinked, and moved to his seat without replying. Then, smiling, Rumi fell sideways into her seat and then over the edge into Izuku's lap. Feels like home already. With his eyes half-lidded as though he had already passed out the day before it began, Aizawa came like a whisper, curled up in a yellow sleeping bag, coffee in hand. He said in a gravelly voice, I need to address something before we get into lessons. The room fell silent. As you noticed, the one seat is empty. Minoru Mineta has been officially expelled. His conduct yesterday and wanting results did not meet the standards of a UA student. UA won't tolerate his kind of behavior or lack of effort. Several students looked at each other in surprise that he had bothered to explain what he had done yesterday. Aizawa went on, "We'll be choosing a replacement shortly. Until then, that spot stays empty. Now, pay attention. Each of your teachers will be rotating in during their assigned periods today. First up, literature." Literature. Current Mike. There was a loud boom as the door slammed open. Present Mike exclaimed, "Yeehaw! What's up, Class 1A?" as he swooped like a rock star into the room. "I'm your literature teacher, Hizashi Yamada, aka Present Mike." The class gave a blink. "I'm here to make you fall in love with words, baby. Not just in books. In battle too. A hero who can't speak clearly can't inspire others." He made a pose and smiled behind yellow shades. "Now let's break down a little poetry." Even the most exhausted students sat up straighter, surprisingly, thanks to his boisterous, eccentric energy. Yes, the lesson was chaotic, but it was also unquestionably interesting. Ectoplasm. In math, ectoplasm appeared next, a tall, skeletal-looking hero with a ghostly, dimly glowing jaw wearing a long coat. His voice was a quiet, eerie monotone. "I am ectoplasm. I teach mathematics," he said. "Today we begin with quadratic equations. Your survival depends on understanding trajectory and angles." With a flick of his hand, he conjured up a clone of himself, which started writing equations on the board. Do not be fooled. Math saves lives. The challenge was thrilling, but the tone was somber. Cementos. In history then came the massive, blocky stone figure known as Cementos. His voice was calm and friendly, despite his intimidating appearance. "Good morning, class. History is not just about what happened, it's about why it happened." A flawless 3D timeline emerged from the floor in seamless concrete segments as he tapped the whiteboard. "We'll be looking at the rise and fall of major quirk eras, how policy and power shaped hero society." Fascinated, the room hung on his words, "Midnight Hero Arts." At last, right before lunch, there was a swirl of violet cloth and a dramatic gust of perfume. "Good morning, darlings," Midnight purred as she entered the room wearing a specially tailored version of her typical attire, which consisted of a modest cape for school decorum but was still form-fitting. "I am your hero arts teacher. And trust me, we're going to explore more than just fighting. You're going to learn about expression, presence, and poise." She gave a wink. Because no matter how powerful you are, a hero must command a scene. Evidently intrigued, even Rumi sat up straighter. Midnight confidently walked between desks. "You'll be choreographing a short power presentation later this week. Don't worry, I'll help you find your spotlight." Thoughts. Prior to lunch, Izuku leaned back in his chair and let out a breath as the bell rang, indicating that it was time for food. Eyes darting around the humming classroom, he thought, "It's strange. A lot of this, including the lessons, jokes, and notes being passed between classmates, felt like a typical school day. It was simple to forget that this was a school that taught people how to save lives and battle evildoers." Rumi stretched her arms beside him, her ears perking up and down. She chewed on her pen and thought, "It's too normal. Where is the difficulty? The dirt? The actual instruction?" They both sensed it in their bones, and this was only the start. A much-needed break was announced by the buzz of the lunch bell that reverberated through the UA hallways. Conversations erupted with laughter and excitement as the Class 1A students spilled out into the cafeteria. Rumi's smaller hand brushed Izuku's as they walked side by side. She smirked as she glanced up at him. "You better save me a seat, tall guy. I'm starving." Izuku laughed and said, "You think I dare sit without you? I like having my legs intact, thanks." "That's right. Smart boy," she said, giving him a tender elbow to the side. The cafeteria was a spacious, well-lit area with busy students of all grades seated at long tables. Lunch Rush, the school chef and pro-hero, was behind the counter. A short, brisk man with goggles, a huge white chef's hat, and a masked face that never stopped smiling. His big personality stood out against his small frame. With dramatic flair, he exclaimed, "Welcome, future heroes. Today's menu: energy-packed rice bowls and fluffy katsu curry. Special orders? You know I got you." Rumi whispered, "Dude's got more energy than me on espresso." Izuku said, "That's kind of impressive," laughing as they got closer. Lunch Rush distributed their meals in record time, almost teleporting behind the counter. "For the lovebirds, something extra spicy. Adds a little heat to the romance, huh?" Rumi had a gleam in her eyes. The professional hero merely winked and laughed, saying, You know us already. They located a long table where a number of their classmates were already seated and took trays. With excitement, Mina waved them over. Over here, we saved you a spot. Toru, Ochako, Su, Kirishima, Denki, Jiro, and Momo were already seated and engaged in a mix of light conversation and witty remarking. Izuku was taller than the others, even when seated, and Rumi slid into her seat next to him. She leaned against his side right away, as if it were her own. Denki teased, Izuku's basically a bunny pillow at this point, which made Mina laugh. Jealous? Replied Rumi, grinning. Terribly, Denki uttered in a dramatic and humorous manner. I want a tall, soft boyfriend. Izuku deadpanned, you're not my type, which caused everyone to laugh. Tokiyami and Shoji joined right down the table. When Shoji formally introduced himself to Rumi and Izuku, his deep, serene voice was noticeable. Glad to have you with us. You're both very capable. Izuku said, thanks, with warmth. I remember catching sight of you at the entrance exam. Your adaptability was amazing. Tokiyami, who always had a gloomy, bird-like head, nodded solemnly. The dark is always watching. But, good to know we have strong allies. Rumi gave him a fist bump and said, you're cool, bird bro, which he unexpectedly returned. Iida. Mina exclaimed, gesturing to the boy who approached as if he were still in class. Sit down already and relax a bit. He adjusted his spectacles and remarked, I suppose a bit of socializing is important for team building. Despite his slight stiffness, he tried to sit down next to Shoji in the open seat. Lunch was a flurry of rambling commentary, minor arguments, and laughter. Momo was drawn into a conversation about classical instruments between Jiro and Denki as they talked about music. While Kirishima and Rumi engaged in a lighthearted argument about the proper technique for performing squats, Ochako and Toru exchanged images of adorable animals and plush toys from their phones. The atmosphere at their table was light despite Bakugo sitting by himself at a nearby table, frowning into his curry as if it were an insult. Izuku leaned in close to Rumi as lunch was coming to an end. Hey, want to sneak away for a few minutes? Her ears immediately pricked up. You read my mind. Unnoticed by everyone except Mina, who gave them a knowing look and gave Ochako a gentle shove, they stealthily left the group. Just outside the cafeteria, the couple discovered a tiny courtyard, a peaceful nook sheltered by a blossoming sakura tree. Pulling Izuku to stand between her legs, Rumi leapt up onto the stone ledge that lined the space. It was simpler to see eye to eye because of their disparity in height. Murmuring, that's better, she put her arms around his neck. Needed a moment with just us. Izuku swept a lock of hair away from her face. Me too. You've been amazing today. She leaned forward and brushed her nose against his before giving him a gentle kiss and then another one with more heat. Damn right I have. With his arms at her waist, he held her close without causing too much damage to her uniform. Their breaths mixed as they broke apart. He whispered, we should head back, in a loving voice. She sighed and gave him a final kiss. Yeah, but now I'm counting the hours till we're home again, she said. Class 1A as the bell rang, Izuku and Rumi went back to class together, unwinding side by side. When Mina first noticed them, their classmates had already begun to settle in. Mina smiled and pushed Toru right next to her. Oh ho! Look who decided to stroll in together, she said. Toru giggled and leaned forward. You two sneak off again? Little mid-morning date, maybe? Rumi flipped one ear in a sly smile. We stretched our legs, that's all. Izuku gave a cool, unconcerned shrug. It's nice out. Thought we'd enjoy a bit of sun before class. Mina teased, ooh, listen to Mr. Smooth, but she didn't really mean it. Rumi gave him a playful elbow. They're just jealous. The door slid open before the teasing could continue, and Aizawa entered with his yellow sleeping bag slung over his shoulder. He appeared to have not slept in a week, which the class noted as apparently his typical appearance. He muttered, settle down, his weary voice piercing the commotion with unexpected ease. Your next period is heroics. Get ready to move. The class instantly became alert, their eyes brightening with curiosity and excitement. As he walked back out, Aizawa waved lazily at them. Don't give your instructor too much grief. The buzz started as soon as the door closed. Kirishima practically vibrated in his seat as he exclaimed, heroics class? That sounds awesome. With a look around, Mina asked, who do you think is teaching it? Another pro, maybe? Denki added, someone cool, hopefully. Imagine if it's someone like Endeavor or Best Jeanist. With thoughtfulness, Momo added, I hope it's someone reliable. Rumi leaned over to Izuku. her face amused as the class made wild guesses. They're gonna lose it. Izuku smiled slightly, knowingly, and nodded. They'll figure it out soon enough. The door slid open once more at that moment. A recognizable, loud voice exclaimed, "I am," entering the classroom like a normal person. Bright grin and All Might's enormous body filled the doorway in his signature pose. Chaos broke out in the classroom. It's All Might. He's our teacher? No way, are you serious right now? Rumi merely crossed her arms and grinned proudly in the middle of the gasps and admiration. There he is. Izuku simply gave a serene, loving smile. Yup, in his Silver Age costume to boot. Exuberant, All Might strode to the front of the class. Yes, students, All Might, will be teaching your heroics class this semester. The room practically shook with excitement as he gave them the thumbs up. Today, we'll be conducting battle trials. You'll be put into simulated hero versus villain scenarios. Real action, real strategy, real stakes. Though, of course, safety measures will be in place. I'll personally ensure no one is seriously injured. Excitement echoed through the classroom. Rumi's grin was wild and her ears pricked up. Now this is what I'm here for. A serene intensity glowed in Izuku's eyes. Time to show what we've got. But first, yelled All Might, his voice booming once more. Before he could say, you'll need to gear up. Your hero costumes await you in the locker rooms. Let's get changed and meet at Training Ground Beta. 19 cases bearing the names of each student appeared on the wall. The class was humming with excitement and anticipation as they clambered out of their seats. Each of them snatched up their case. Once again, Izuku and Rumi walked side by side, both composed and prepared. As the class put on their hero costumes for the first time, the atmosphere was electrifying. Nerves, excitement, and laughter were all in the air as students filed into the locker rooms. In the locker room for girls, Rumi stood in front of her costume, her fingers grazing the fabric as though she were holding a holy object. It was sleek and strong, white as moonlight with accents of black and violet that were designed to highlight her strength and speed. Her bare arms and legs were designed for movement, strength, and combat. The outfit was finished with boots and reinforced gloves. 3 delicate, subdued crescent moons, 1 large and 2 smaller, were positioned down her spine on the back of her attire, acting as a silent emblem of her identity. Her face changed from amazement to a crazed smile. It was more than a costume. She was like this. Mina leaned in to give her a gentle prod. You're gonna make half the class fall over. Rumi said, good, while popping her knuckles. They should be worried. In the locker room for the boys, Izuku checked himself steadily in the mirror as he sewed the final piece of his costume. His dark green suit, which was traced with black paneling for a crisp, clean profile, fit him like a second skin. Thin red accents provided focus and contrast, while white armor pieces embraced his shoulders and forearms. He wore a short, half cape that was subtly but boldly draped from his left shoulder, and his boots were reinforced for control and agility. There was a golden belt buckle at his waist. Nana Shimura used to wear the same symbol. He was unaware of that. He had received it without much fanfare from Gran Torino. He had said, wear it. You've earned it. It felt right, even though Izuku didn't yet know the whole story. Beta of Training Ground anticipation was high as the class assembled on the open field one by one, each student showing up in their own unique way. With a smile, Kirishima emerged, his red armor plates flexing as he moved. Man, I feel manly in this. Mina spun around in her black and pink suit that could withstand acid. I could totally dance in this. Toru laughed. My new stealth fabric even shimmers if you catch it just right. Tokiyami came out, her cloak billowing in the breeze. The darkness welcomes me. Ochako showed up in her sleek pink suit, small and functional. It's so light, it feels like I could float already. But why did it have to be skin tight? In his well-balanced navy uniform, Todoroki entered the field silently, ice completely covering one side and radiating ice potential with each step. With engines gleaming, Tenya stood with pride, resembling a modernized, streamlined knight. Everything has been optimized for high-speed maneuvering. Wearing a jumpsuit with a frog motif, Tsuyu bounded into position. Good fit, everything stretches. As he adjusted the wrist support gear, Denki smiled. Limiters in place, ready to light it up. Wires coiled at her hips. Jiru grinned in her black suit with leather accents, nice and clean. Standing tall in her gold and crimson bodysuit, Momo had her storage belt ready. Plenty of room for creating what I need. Zero flaunted his tape spools by flexing his arms. Functional, sleek. Shoji moved in silence, several limbs moving in the breathable, dark armor. Mobility's perfect. Ojiro nodded simply, tail free and GI secured, feels natural. Sato, wearing thick, reinforced armor, cracked his knuckles, ready to go. Yuga's glittering costume was used to strike a dramatic pose. My radiance must shine in battle. Bakugo, wearing a black and orange outfit with gauntlets that resembled grenades, stomped in with his trademark frown. TCH. Took you all long enough. Then, a shift in the atmosphere. The field was occupied by Izuku Midoriya. He didn't make a grand entrance. No big showy gestures, however, his presence was self-evident. He felt as though the dark green suit was tailored for this particular occasion. Red accent markings, white armored plates, and black-lined muscle seams. As he walked, the half-cape caught just enough wind to wobble. A silent tribute carried with purpose, the golden belt buckle at his waist gleamed in the sunlight. Some of his classmates, attracted to him, instinctively straightened up. Then, Rumi. The group fell silent like a heartbeat. Her outfit, which was made of white, black, and violet and was designed for speed and combat, had a clean silhouette. The crescent moons glinted against the fabric on her back as her feminine athletic frame exuded strength. Her tall ears, keen eyes, and fierce stride gave the impression that she owned the ground she walked on. Izuku's eyes immediately found her, then she turned around. Time slowed but did not stop, enough for a single heartbeat of silent acknowledgement. She was a storm in a dress, and with calm purpose, he was a fire. Head cocked, Rumi took a step closer. You're lookin' sharp, Zuku. You too, Ru, he said in a warm, even voice. The moon suit you. Her eyes glinted as she flicked the buckle at his waist. That new? According to him, gift from Gran Torino, said I earned it. A grin tugged at her mouth. You wear it like you belong. He paused, his gaze sweeping over her entire body. You don't just look good, you look ready. Her smile was wild and sincere. Damn right I do. Prior to the moment becoming more intense, boom. The doors of the enormous training ground flew open. I am here, his voice thundered across the field as All Might exploded onto the scene. Rumi smiled broadly. All right, now it's a party. Just nodding, Izuku's cape brushed behind him. All Might gave the class a big thumbs up and smiled. His eyes widened at the sight of the belt buckle and then filled with warmth as he paused to look at Izuku. You all look amazing. Your first trial begins now. Hero versus villain battle simulation, he said. He nodded subtly to his successor, who did the same. Then he continued. We'll start drawing teams shortly, but for now, remember, this is where heroes are made. With a sharp swish, Tenya Iida took off his helmet to adjust his glasses as All Might stood proudly in front of the class, arms crossed and cape practically rippling with charisma. Sir, Iida replied with a firm but inquisitive, is drawing lots truly the most efficient way to form teams? Wouldn't predetermined pairs based on ability or synergy yield better data? Izuku calmly moved forward before All Might could respond. He stated, it actually makes sense, in a steady, reflective tone. Real-world situations aren't tailored to who you want to work with. You're thrown into missions with whoever's available, and sometimes, you're alone. Drawing randomly simulates the unpredictability of a real field scenario. Momo gave a nod. Midoriya's right, it's also a fair way to avoid favoritism. Everyone gets an equal shot at adapting on the fly. There was a murmur of agreement among the students. Then the barrage of inquiries. All Might. Can we use our quirks at full power? What happens if someone gets hurt? Are we allowed to destroy the building? Can villains kill the heroes in the scenario? The classroom blew up. All Might held up a hand, then clapped his hands once when that failed. Boom. Quiet. Fear not, young heroes. I will explain everything in due time. He raised one finger to the sky in a dramatic pose. He exclaimed, the exercise is simple. The villains have hidden a nuclear weapon inside a building. The heroes must capture it within a time limit or subdue the villains. If the villains defend it until the time runs out, or capture the heroes, they win. The site has been constructed to resemble a villain hideout. Try not to destroy too much, he joked. Now, onto team selection. We'll draw lots. Since we have 19 students, one person will end up alone. But don't fret. This too is part of being a hero. Sometimes, you must rise against impossible odds. He displayed a card, and our solo hero will be. He turned it over. Midoriya Izuku. The group erupted in gasps. What? Unlucky, Mina muttered. Rumi's ears twitched as she grinned. Looks like you're the special one, Zuko. He smiled at her, modestly but confidently. Next team. Asui and Usagiyama. Sue gave Rumi a fist bump and nodded. Let's crush it, Bunny-chan. Team 3. Bakugo and Iida. Bakugo laughed. Stay out of my way, Four Eyes. Iida didn't move. Just focus on the objective, Bakugo. All Might went on. Team 4. Sato and Todoroki. Team 5. Denki and Momo. Team 6. Aoyama and Jiro. Shiro and Ojiro make up Team 7. Team 8. Hagakure and Shoji. Team 9. Mina and Kirishima. Team 10. Ochako and Tokiyami. All Might gave another clap. And our first match, Hero Team. Izuku Midoriya. Villain Team. Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Iida. Izuku rolled his shoulders with a gentle exhale and adjusted his gloves as the groups moved into formation. He muttered to himself, not out of nervousness but out of concentration. All right. Bakugo's aggression, Iida's speed. Gotta be smart. Just as he turned to leave for the mock building, Rumi strode up with a gleam of pride in her red eyes and alert ears. Hey. He pivoted. She said, you've got this, without holding back. Not that I think you need a pep talk, but... Reaching up, she caught his suit collar and drew him closer. Bold and unfazed by their audience, she kissed him on the lips without saying a word. The class echoed with a chorus of, ooh, and a few gasps. Her smirk had teeth when she withdrew. Go show him what a real hero looks like, babe. Izuku wiped a hand across her cheek and laughed softly. I will. Heroes, begin. Izuku entered the battlefield as All Might's voice roared across the training area, not like a student but rather like a storm given shape. He walked with silent vigor, the force of his steps causing the tile underneath to crack beneath them. As the air around him vibrated with stored power, shadows moved and his emerald eyes glowed with conviction. 15%, no higher. I want them breathing after this. Within the structure, Katsuki Bakugo paced like an animal in a cage while clicking his tongue. His eyes were burning as he said, he's coming. He was essentially challenging the world. Beside the bomb, Iida adjusted his glasses. Should we engage as a unit? Bakugo gave him a deadly look. Shut it. I'm blowing him apart by myself first. Boom. Izuku had entered like a missile, shoulder slamming through reinforced walls, dust following him like a war ghost, and the hallway exploded without warning. Bakugo acted without hesitation. Deku. Palm first, he met Izuku mid-charge. Boom. The floor shook from the impact. A shockwave shattered windows and split concrete as it blasted down the hall. Izuku did not even bat an eye. He spun in midair and kicked Bakugo in the stomach with a spinning back kick. Crunch. To break the impact, Bakugo spat up spit and blasted himself away with a detonation. Izuku made a predatory landing. He moved forward in a blur. Slam. Crack. Thoom. Before Bakugo could even stabilize, he took 3 blows, to the leg, face, and ribs. He ripped a line into the wall as he skidded across the ground, blood dripping from his nose. He was smiling, though. Hey, that's more like it. Blam. Izuku was struck in the chest by Bakugo's cluster explosion, which was a feint in return. Behind him, the wall exploded, engulfing the corridor in smoke and flames. Burn, bastard. Like a demon, he rushed through the smoke. Izuku, however, was waiting. Too slow, he struck Bakugo in the stomach. Wham! Before he cratered in a stairwell, Bakugo's body cartwheeled through drywall and rebar after being launched through 2 floors by the blast. Room of control for a moment, everyone in the class stared at the screens in stunned silence. Ashido broke the silence with a voice that was a mixture of excitement and incredulity. Did anyone else just feel that? Jiro turned to Todoroki, her eyes wide. He just wrecked Bakugo in seconds. That's insane. Ever calm and collected, Todoroki looked back at the screen. I've never seen someone hit like that before. His control over his power, it's almost surgical. Kirishima grinned broadly as he observed his friend take blow after blow. Yeah, and Bakugo's still going at it. Talk about determination, he said. But damn, Midori bro is moving like a freight train. He's not giving him a chance to recover. Rumi was sitting on the edge of her seat, giddy with anticipation. That's my man. Break him down, Zuko. Show him what a real force of nature looks like. Mina jumped up and down, giggling. I'm so stealing that move. Look at that power. Momo nodded thoughtfully in the meantime, Her voice composed yet brimming with praise. He's holding back. You can see it. He's not using his full power, but he's absolutely dominating. That takes a lot of control. The battle then took another explosive turn in the same amount of time. Stairwell with red teeth, bleeding, and shoulders that rose and fell like a rabid animal, Bakugo rose to his feet. You think this is enough to stop me? His temples were dripping with sweat. His gauntlets flared. You forced my hand. Take this, you shitty Deku, he screamed, poised to pull the pin while holding up one gauntlet. Izuku shifted. Too quickly. Bakugo released the blast after removing the pin. A huge whirlpool of heat and fire, pure destruction, roared down the corridor. Get out of my way, Deku. Izuku's expression grew stern. He concentrated. The air glistened. With a roaring heave, he sprang forward, arms out, catching the blast's edge with his body. Steered it directly out of the structure. Boom mm. Like a nuclear flare, the skyline glowed. Rubble rained from the ceiling inside. The walls were licked with fire. The whole building moaned. The arms of Bakugo went limp. Damn it, in a flash, Izuku was in front of him. This is over. Crackling energy surged through his fist. Crack. A single, clean blow to the mandible. Bakugo rolled his eyes back. He fell to the ground and never got back up. Room of control. The entire class erupted in cheers and shouts, but Rumi was the most boisterous. That's my man. Hell yeah, Zuku. With his fists pumping, Kirishima stood up. Now that's what I'm talking about. He's like a goddamn juggernaut. Mina's eyes were wide as she leaned forward. Was that real? Did he just redirect Bakugo's biggest attack with nothing but his body? Todoroki maintained his composure despite appearing impressed. Precision. That was impressive. All Might stood in the control room, watching Izuku's next move with intense eyes. Young Midoriya is truly a force to be reckoned with. His restraint is remarkable. He knows when to hold back and when to take the risk. The bomb room. Izuku's shadow loomed over Iida, who stood tall, eyes wide behind his helmet. I, the villain, shall. Smash. The wall gave way. Izuku strode through. Encased in lightning and smoke, he didn't slow down, he remained silent. He tied Iida in midair, threw him against the wall, and tapped the bomb. Simulation over. There was silence in the observation room again. Then, a roar of cheers. At first pumping, Sato exclaimed, "That guy's a beast," after seeing such an amazing performance. Kirishima exclaimed, "So manly," as he shed manly tears. Mina suppressed a chuckle as she watched her horn buddy's performance. After seeing Izuku defeat two Opanes with ease, Tokiyami muttered in amazement, truly a divine being of justice. At first, Rumi remained silent. She waited for him to come back. Then, she took hold of his collar, drew him into a firm, long kiss. That was hot. Izuku pressed a smirk to her mouth. Glad you liked it. The med bots arrived to pick up the unconscious student and untie the captured one, enabling Ilda to rejoin the rest of the class after the intense battle between Bakugo and Izuku ended with a knockout finish and Iida was quickly defeated. Steam rose from Bakugo's charred gauntlet as he was loaded onto a stretcher, and he moaned. After that, the construction robots arrived to fix the damaged area in preparation for the following game. With her arms folded, Rumi grinned from her position at the front next to Izuku. With a proud and completely amused tail flick, she exclaimed, "He really didn't hold back, huh? Classic Zuku." The rest of the class was humming with conversation. With his mouth essentially on the ground, Denki questioned, "Did you see how he redirected that blast without blinking?" Bakugo went boom, and Midoriya went nope. Zero continued, imitating the gesture. Guy's a walking cheat code. A hand was raised by All Might. Let's stay focused, class. We're just getting started. But first, MVP for match 1. Everybody looked around. Some whispered to themselves, obviously. Momo was the first to speak, calm and collected. It's Midoriya. Not just because he took down Bakugo, but because of his precision and strategic execution. He never lost control of the situation. Rumi smiled as she added. Green was smooth, fast thinking, smart planning. Villains didn't stand a chance. All Might grinned widely. I couldn't agree more. Midoriya, excellent work. You've earned the MVP. Izuku nodded assuredly, composed and calm, with a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Thanks. I just did what had to be done. The next game starts. Heroes on Team 4, Todoroki Sato. Villains Team 8. Shoji Hagakure calm and silent, Todoroki made his way to the door. Sato trailed behind, a little less certain. As they got closer to the door, Sato inquired, "Any plan?" Todoroki didn't even look in his direction. "I'll handle it." Grounds for training ice rushed through the hallway like a living glacier as soon as the game started. It was too late for Shoji's improved hearing to detect it. A crash. His several arms were frozen in place as the wave of ice crashed into him. Invisible and swift, Hagakure sped through a nearby hallway, but the frost followed her like a living creature. Todoroki took a step forward, her eyes unreadable and serene. He held up a hand. Whoom. Hagakure was sealed in and the bomb chamber was securely locked by a last blast of ice. The match is over. Room of Control Sato came back with a shrug. Didn't even get a chance to do anything. Mina blinked. Wait, seriously? That fast? Kirishima raised her head. Dude iced an entire floor by himself. No hesitation. Izuku did not look up as he scrawled into his notebook. All but Rumi pondered in silence the origin of those. He pulled them from somewhere, but no one saw when. His control is scary good. He's not just powerful, he's deliberate. He even adjusted the humidity to sharpen the ice flow. But he stopped and tapped the pen to the page's side. He completely ignored Sato. That could be a real blind spot if things don't go to plan. Oh, look at Nerdzilla go, Zero said with a smile. Mina chuckled. He's gonna have everyone's quirks cataloged by the end of the semester. Unfazed, Izuku smirked, already halfway there. Eyes on the notes, Rumi leaned into him. TCH. You're kind of hot when you talk like that. Once more, All Might stepped forward. Time to pick our MVP for this match. Midoriya? Asked All Might. Izuku said. Todoroki, without hesitation. His strategy was efficient and dominant. But MVP isn't just power. He has room to grow when it comes to synergy. Agreed, stated Momo. Sato was completely sidelined. All Might gave a nod. Well said. Power alone isn't enough. Still, an excellent show of ability from Todoroki. A few minutes to allow the construction robots to finish their work. Next game hero Team 5. Momo Denki Villains, Team 6, Juru Aoyama. Juru struck hard right away, causing the walls to tremble with her sound waves. Momo whipped up a steel barricade in the middle of the run, and Denki ducked behind it, glowing like a live wire. Aoyama made a dramatic spin. Behold, my laser, shining and just. Hey, Momo! Exclaimed Denki. You got anything to help me fry without frying myself? She responded, try these, and tossed him insulated gloves with an integrated surge stabilizer. Denki smiled. Now we're talking. He rushed forward, abruptly interrupting Juru's wave and shocking her speaker jack. Momo secured the bomb and wrapped Aoyama in a whip-like cable. Momo Denki won. Room of Control Aoyama and Juru returned with conflicted looks. Still ringing, mumbled Juru. Might have gone a bit too flashy, acknowledged Aoyama. With a wink, Denki strode in behind Momo, told Ya we made a good team. Izuku's gaze brightened. Almost glowing, he twirled his pen between his fingers. Juru's got great sonic control, but Denki's surge was just the right counter, especially with those gloves. Momo's adaptability is unreal. The timing of her support tools, precision perfect. Kirishima smiled and said, you're really into this, huh? Izuku gave a nod. Quirks are more than just powers, they're puzzles. I love figuring them out. Mina teasingly said, you're like a quirk detective. Rumi grinned. He's a quirk fanboy, and a dangerous one. All Might indicated the board. Class, MVP. Yaoyorozu, said Tokiyami. She read the situation and equipped her partner with the tools to succeed. Agreed, Iida said with a nod. Her tactical choices were essential. All Might nodded proudly at Momo. Excellent work, Yaoyorozu. Tactical execution is the backbone of hero work. Finishing the round. All right, said All Might. 2 strong matches down, and still more to go. Rumi looked at the board and stretched. Are you sure you can follow that act? Todoroki sat quietly in the back and did not move. Izuku was the only one who saw the flicker. The class was beginning to form. Power, plan, expansion. Izuku's pen was at the ready, his eyes were keen, and his love of oddities remained unwavering throughout. They were already calling the next group. All Might exclaimed, all right, next match. With his typical flair. Heroes. Eijiro Kirishima and Mina Ishido. Villains. Honta Shiro and Mashirao Ojiro. Kirishima gave Mina a fist bump while cracking his knuckles. Let's bring the heat, Hornbuddy. As they left the observation room, Mina smiled and bounded back, her pink hair bouncing with her steps. You know it, she said. Shiro and Ojiro did the same, looking at each other intently. We've got to keep pressure and control. Ojiro, try to bait them, I'll control the space. With a firm, got it, the tailed martial artist said. The rest of the class was buzzing with anticipation as the door to the observation room clicked shut once more after they had left. Perched on Izuku's back like a restless predator on a tree branch, Rumi shifted in her position inside. Her voice was low but full of desire for action as she muttered, "TCH. How many more before they let me off the leash?" As she casually adjusted her position with practiced ease, Izuku said calmly, "You'll get your turn. You're literally the next match. Just be patient. You're gonna get to tear it up soon enough." She pressed her cheek against his mop of green curls and leaned down against his head. It better be worth the wait. Training grounds. Shiro Ojiro versus Kirishima Mina. The students were placed in a multi-story industrial building this time. With Kirishima leading the charge and his loud footsteps resonating, Mina and he swiftly made their way to the first floor. All right, Mina, stick close, cover the angles with your acid if they try anything tricky. No prob. I'll keep the walls slick, limit their climbing routes. Ojiro and Shiro were already getting ready on the upper floors. Ojiro's tail twitched in anticipation as he whispered, I'll engage up close. You support with tape shots to cut off their escape routes. Ojiro intercepted Kirishima's direct charge with a spinning tail attack as soon as they descended. He was obviously skilled at fighting, balancing agility and strength. Nice moves. Kirishima smiled as his skin hardened and he used his forearm to block a sweeping tail strike. As their physical prowess was put to the test, the two clashed, sparks of effort flying. Mina scurried about, shooting precise acid shots at Shiro, making him move constantly, zipping and sticking around corners and beams. You're a slippery one, tape guy. Shiro retorted, you're not so easy to pin either, and launched several strands of tape to impede movement. However, Mina was quick and astute, and she started to destroy his tape pads with her acid. Can't swing if you've got nowhere to stick. With a war cry, Kirishima finally overpowered Ojiro on the lower level with a vicious shoulder rush, knocking him out of the fight and sending him into the wall with enough force to knock him out cold. Mina pressed the attack on the upper floor, deftly slicing the platform Shiro had just attached to. The acid coating made his landing unstable as he zipped forward, causing him to stumble. Kirishima was closing in, and Shiro was flanked and soon overrun. The intercoms blared, heroes win, all might. Commentary in the observation room. That was tight teamwork, Momo noted, anticipating a critical thought. They stayed close, communicated, and exploited openings. Adding, plus, Ashido's acid use was clever. Izuku scrawled notes at breakneck speed. She didn't just attack. She used it to manipulate the battlefield. And Kirishima's durability made him the perfect frontliner. Rumi sulked once more. Cute teamwork. But I'm still itching to tear someone's arms off. Easy, Bun, laughed Izuku. It's almost your time. Toru laughed. You two are adorable in a slightly terrifying way. Dinky even gave Izuku a shove. Man, you really do go full nerd for quirks, huh? Izuku was unflinching. Absolutely. Understanding quirks is the key to heroics. You gotta love the tools if you want to master the craft. After returning somewhat bruised, Shiro and Ojiro took their seats and nodded respectfully. Mina and Kirishima trailed behind, both smiling and giving each other high fives. MVP selection once more. All Might held up his hand. Excellent job from all participants. Now, class, let's discuss MVP. It was Momo who spoke first. I believe Ashido should be MVP. Her quick-thinking use of her quirk turned the tide of the match. Definitely, said Izuku. Kirishima was a great tank, but Ashido made all the plays that forced the villains into predictable paths. Her terrain control sealed it. All Might smiled. Well said. Then I declare, Mina Ashido is the MVP. Mina essentially danced without moving. Sweet on a roll, baby. Kirishima smiled broadly. Couldn't have done it without ya, Mina. All Might laughed. Good spirit, young Kirishima. That attitude will take you far. Rumi leaned down and whispered in Izuku's ear in a low, savage voice as the commotion subsided and everyone went back to their seats. You smell that? That scent of battle? It's almost my turn. Izuku simply grinned. Let him finish, then you can go wild. All Might said, "All right, final match of the day," with an exuberance that was as strong as ever. Heroes: Rumi Usagiyama and Tsuyu Asui. Villains: Fumikage Tokiyami and Ochako Uraraka. The sound of her name made Rumi's ears perk up. In an instant, her muscles twitched and her eyes narrowed as she leapt off Izuku's back. She mumbled, finally, and cracked her neck, "Time to let loose." Tsuyu calmly adjusted her gloves. "Kiro, ready when you are. You take the high ground, I'll break the ground." "Understood." Tokiyami stood like a dark knight from the villain's side, his arms folded under his cloak. "I'll take point. Keep the bomb secure." Ochako positioned herself farther inside the mock facility and nodded. "I'll guard it. Be careful out there." Training ground. Tokiyami Ochako vs Rumi Tsuyu final match. Team Hero moved quickly and efficiently through the man-made structure. Like a predator ready to strike, Rumi squatted low and hopped a little on her toes. Whispering, "There, hold up," she sniffed the air. Heavy shadows ahead. Tsuyu muttered, "Tokiyami likes the dark," from her position on the wall above. "I'll scout. Watch for a frontal assault." The hallway echoed with a rumble, the shadows flickering strangely. "Found him." Dark Shadow lunged forward, snarling and swiping with ferocity. Rumi's grin was feral as she confronted the attack. Sliding beneath the beast's claws, she retaliated with a rising uppercut that forced Dark Shadow's chin back and clipped it. Tokiyami came out of the shadows calm and determined. "You're quick." In response, Rumi threw herself off the wall and twisted into a vicious spinning kick. "And you're about to get stomped," she said. Although Tokiyami used both arms to block it, he was shaken by the impact. Tsuyu, meanwhile, ducked through the confusion above to map the villain's stronghold. Dark Shadow was forced to protect Tokiyami's flanks as her tongue slammed forward, causing ceiling tiles to come loose. According to Tsuyu, still guarding the bomb, over the communications, Uraraka hasn't moved. Rumi snarled, "Then she's mine next." In retaliation, Tokiyami sent Dark Shadow tearing in broad arcs, but Rumi scuttled through them like a moving storm. She flipped off the walls, threw herself forward with her momentum, and then slammed Tokiyami into the wall with a crushing knee to his chest. She teasingly asked, "Done playing defense?" "I am defense," Tokiyami retorted, gathering his strength. Dark Shadow charged forward once more, but Tsuyu entered the battle just in time, using her tongue to seize one of the monster's arms and secure it to a support beam. "Support incoming, Kiro," the woman said. "Good girl," yelled Rumi, rushing in. Tokiyami was overpowered by her combination of spinning kicks and wild jabs, which made him turn to flee toward the bomb room. However, Ochako stacked barriers to slow them and floated debris defensively as they approached. "I won't let you pass," Rumi continued to drive. "You're guarding it?" With a vicious leaping stomp, she bounded forward and smashed through the floating barricade. Ochako dodged and lightened herself using her quirk, but Tsuyu was already in her rear. She disarmed the last float device with a swift tongue lash. The floor cracked as Rumi rushed in and slammed her foot next to the bomb. Game over. The match. The voice of All Might bellowed, "Training match complete. Heroes win," throughout the building. Commentary in the observation room muttering, "Rumi's relentless," Kaminari said. "It's like she never stops moving." Adding, "She fights like a storm." Juru took notes. "No wasted movement." As Yayorozu pointed out, but she didn't just charge in blindly, she coordinated with Asui at every step. They flanked, they distracted, they swept. From the rear of the room, Izuku appeared to be almost radiant. His entire being was proud as his gaze remained fixed on the screen. She read the whole field, predicted Dark Shadow's angles, cornered Tokiyami without giving him time to set up a trap, he said with amazement. Then turned and broke through Uraraka's defenses like a tank. That was beautiful. Kirishima smiled teasingly at him. "You sure you're not a little biased, Midoriya?" "I'd be blind not to admire that," he shot back, deadpan and without apology. Todoroki's eyebrow went up. She was efficient, strategic, brutal, impressive. Return after the match with a proud smirk on her face and perspiration on her forehead, Rumi strode back into the room. Tsuyu trailed close behind, calm and collected. "All right," called All Might. "Let's talk MVP." "My vote's obvious," Todoroki declared. "Usagiyama." Yayorozu concurred, saying, "She was the spear and the shield." Asui supported her well, but Usagiyama dictated the entire fight. Izuku grinned broadly and nodded. "She's a force of nature, but this time, she used her strength with someone else." That kind of growth is what heroes need. Then it's unanimous. Rumi Usagiyama is MVP, All Might's voice boomed. She muttered, damn right, as she extended her shoulders. Hope y'all were taking notes. Class is over. All Might gave a clap. That's it for today, class. Amazing work. You've all shown incredible improvement, teamwork, and combat instincts. Rest up, you earned it. Izuku offered his customary piggyback perch without hesitation, and Rumi found herself instinctively returning to him as students started to chat and leave. Like it was home, she jumped on. In his ear, she whispered, did good, huh? You were perfect, he replied without hesitation. She grinned. Next time, I'm gonna raise hell even harder. He laughed. I wouldn't expect anything less. Locker room for boys' laughter and the occasional moan reverberated off the tile walls, and steam hissed from the showers. After experiencing hero training for the first time, everyone was elated and on a high. That was insane, Kaminari remarked while stroking his hair with a towel. I thought my heart was gonna burst during our match. Zero shot back, you were twitching like a dying Roomba, which caused everyone to laugh. Tokiyami covered his head with a towel and sat quietly. I misjudged her speed. She's formidable. Kirishima gave a nod. Rumi's the real deal, man. I felt that energy from the observation room. She's like a hurricane in sneakers. Izuku pulled on his uniform shirt and laughed quietly to himself. Rumi's every move was still playing back in his mind like a slow-motion highlight reel. Girls' locker room. The girls in the other locker room were just as talkative. As she laced her shoes, Jiru remarked, she doesn't just fight, she hunts. I wouldn't want to be on her bad side, Hagakure remarked, bursting into nervous laughter. Suyu cocked her head and blinked. She's intense, but she worked with me well. Rumi's not just fast, she's smart. Rumi simply stretched languidly close to the bench, her trademark smirk teasing her lips. Gotta give it your all, right? Or what's the point? Mom gave me a kind smile. You both did wonderfully, it was thrilling to watch. Beyond the locker rooms when Rumi emerged, her ears perked up at the sound of footsteps. She discovered Izuku was already there. His eyes were full of admiration as he smiled at her, as he always does. She nudged his side and said, you waiting for me? I always wait for my partner, he said, shrugging slightly. She examined him from head to toe. TCH, sap. Without another utterance, he offered his back. With her arms wrapped around his shoulders, she leapt on and they walked down the hallway together. Returning to the classroom when they came in, Aizawa was already comfortably resting in his sleeping bag. The majority of the class had returned, rested and invigorated. He whispered, that's it for today, you're dismissed. Rest, recover, and reflect. Someone looked around as students started stretching and packing their bags. Hey, has anyone seen Bakugo? Gazing around, Kaminari questioned, he's not back yet? Aizawa opened one eye. He left already. Got healed up and walked out right after he was cleared to go home. Cut 2. Outside, close to the gate of entry. With his shirt half-buttoned, his arms still bandaged, and an unreadable expression, Bakugo strode down the hallway. His fists were clenched, his steps heavy. From the next hallway came All Might. Bakugo. What? He continued to move. I know today was rough, but don't let one stumble define your path. You've got power, heart. I know, damn it. Bakugo yelled, pausing only to give him a fierce look. You think I don't know that already? I'm not some lost kid looking for a pep talk. All Might nodded slightly, but his brows were furrowed. Then prove it. Keep growing. With a grunt, Bakugo continued to walk without saying another word. Returning to the classroom, bags slung over shoulders, books snapped shut, and the last of the conversation echoed. Hey, exclaimed Kaminari. Ramen run again? Like a post-training chill out? Not too much, though, gotta leave room for dinner at home. A few people's heads turned up. Ooh, yeah, that sounds nice. Maybe some gyoza this time, count me in, smiled Kirishima. I'm starved. Izuku glanced at Rumi behind him. You in? With a pop, Rumi rolled her neck. Hell yeah. First round's mine, if you can keep up. With the late afternoon sun streaming in through the windows, the group started to disperse. It was warmer now, like the calm after a good storm, but the energy was still there. It was the end of their first day of actual hero training. They were worn out, they hurt, but above all, they were prepared. After the quirk assessment, the group found themselves entering the small, welcoming ramen shop once more. The elderly man behind the counter nodded in recognition as the aroma of the grilled toppings and broth enveloped them like a cozy blanket. They discovered that his name was Mr. Uzumaki. Back again, huh? You kids must be making this a tradition. Kaminari slid into a booth and asked, "Can you blame us? Best comfort food after a day of getting wrecked." Stretching her arms across the back of the booth as if she owned it, Rumi flopped down next to Izuku. Still buzzing from that match, she grinned and muttered, "I could probably take on another team." Sue asked, "Please don't," and took a seat across from her. "I'd rather not end the day in a hospital bed." Kirishima gave Mina a high five next to him while laughing. "Nah, we're just here to eat and vibe now." Sitting beside Momo, Jiru drummed her chopsticks on the table. "So, MVP Bunny, how's it feel to be everyone's favorite destroyer?" Rumi merely grinned. "Feels earned." Ochako paused as the waiter arrived to take their orders. A sheepish, I think I'll just get water," she said. "I'm kinda saving for a few things." Momo touched her arm tenderly before anyone else could respond. "Let me get you something. It's just a snack between friends." Iida nodded firmly, interrupting Ochako as she opened her mouth to object. "Yaoyorozu-san is correct. You've earned a full stomach as much as anyone today." Izuku went on to say, "I'll chip in, too, same," said Rumi, gesturing toward the menu. "We're not letting you starve, floaty girl." After blushing slightly, Ochako smiled. All right, thanks, guys." Warm sounds of conversation, clinking bowls, and laughter filled the shop as the food arrived. There were jokes. Highlights of the battle were reenacted with dramatic flair. Iida was totally ignored when she tried to correct someone's chopstick technique. Even Momo calmed down, laughing at Kaminari's absurd puns about ramen. It was noisy, sloppy, have fun. A time when friendship and carbohydrates took the place of the stress of hero work. Later that night, as the group started to disperse outside the ramen shop, the sky was painted a deep blue with a hint of purple. "I gotta roll," Kirishima told Denki, giving him a fist bump. "Catch y'all tomorrow." Iida yelled after him, "Remember that a hero is always on time." Denki muttered, "Lame," as she and Jiro started to leave. The warm waves of farewell lingered in the air as they each peeled off toward their train stations or dorms. Izuku and Rumi walked hand in hand, their fingers already entwined. She leaned into his shoulder, twitching her ears. "Hey, piggyback me again." Izuku's eyebrow went up. "Didn't you say you could fight another team like 10 minutes ago?" "Yeah, but now I'm full of noodles," she said sarcastically. "Also, Battle High is still kicking, I'm restless." He chuckled. "Then you gotta stay active, remember? Walk it off, bun bun." Despite her dramatic groan, she continued to walk while squeezing his fingers. "Fine. But next time, I'm riding you all the way home." His laughter was warm and full once more. Next time. At the end of a day that will never be forgotten, the two young heroes vanished into the city's peaceful streets. The high-tech buildings in UA gleamed like something from a futuristic comic book as the morning sun shone brightly across the city. The courtyard was alive with laughter and conversation from the students, but none of them attracted as much attention as Izuku Midoriya, who was 6 feet 4 inches and walked with assurance while Rumi Usugami rode comfortably on his back. With her long white hair trailing behind him like a cape, her arms draped around his neck, her chin resting on his shoulder, and her blood-red eyes watching everything with that predatory spark that never quite went out, she appeared at ease yet vigilant. Rumi grinned and remarked, "You're getting way too comfortable carrying me around like a backpack. And yet you never walk anymore." Izuku poked fun at people. She smiled and said, "Why would I? This includes a heater and a view." The noise struck them like a wave, and now they were close, almost at the front gates. The press had practically surrounded the entrance, buzzing with questions, and there were reporters, microphones, cameras, and paparazzi energy in full swing. The teaching staff has all the strength. What impact does this have on the curriculum? Do students fear that bad guys will target the school? How does it feel to have the symbol of peace teach your homeroom? Iida, who has always been the model student, responded with his typical exactness, "Having all might here is both a privilege and a responsibility. Class 1A students were caught in the mess. As students, we won't allow it to interfere with our concentration." Mina said, "Speak for yourself," with a cheerful peace sign. "This is much more interesting than math." With a toothy smile, Kirishima said, "This was the most manly school day I've ever had." Ochako waved her hands and giggled uncomfortably as she was pressed for remarks. "Yeah, he's incredible, but a little intense." When the crowd saw Izuku and Rumi coming, cameras sprang into action, and reporters rushed forward. Midoriya. Usugami. Officially, are you two a couple? With a thumbs up while still on Izuku's back, Rumi declared right away, no secret here, we're dating. I'm his problem, and he's my broccoli head. Unfazed, Izuku nodded, yeah, we're together. Did you need that scoop? So, a power couple. How does it feel to date a classmate in such a cutthroat setting? With a raised eyebrow, Rumi said, keeps things spicy. Does the existence of All Might increase pressure? Or motivation? Grinning, Izuku said, both. But diamonds are formed by pressure, isn't that correct? A voice that sounded like gravel being dragged across asphalt broke through the chaos before the press could press any farther. Wrap it up. With his hair down and his scarf loosely wrapped around his neck, Aizawa stood next to the gate, his bloodshot eyes scanning the press corps with the usual weary disdain. Your pictures have been taken. Your inquiries have been addressed, he said, now back off and then listen to the history students. However, sir, this is private property. Additionally, school has started. He took out a small device and pressed a button, and the front gate dropped like a guillotine, slamming shut and locking tight with a loud clang and a mechanical hum. The gate closed and the press flinched back. We can't be kept out. With the camera still rolling, one reporter yelled, we have a right to report. This is All Might that we're discussing. How can a public hero school conceal itself from public scrutiny? Asked another, crossing her arms. Aizawa whispered, maybe you'd be invited in if you didn't act like jackals. With a collective sigh of relief, the students behind the barrier started to ascend the front steps. At last, Rumi cracked Izuku's neck as she stretched her legs and slid off her back. Are you certain you're not bothered by that? He looked at the gate and asked. Which section? The questions are the crowd. The attention. Let them see, she shrugged. I'm not hiding here. Yes, he said with a smile. I don't, however, Rumi halted. She twitched her ears. She hopped quickly to jump on the wall enclosing the school grounds, and Izuku saw her eyes narrow as her head slowly turned over her shoulder toward the press. What is it? His voice was lowered as he asked. A man, or something like one, stood among the reporters, half hidden under the shadow of a camera crew. His posture was incorrect, his shoulders slouched in a way that seemed out of control, and one hand twitched at his side repeatedly, as if it were itching to move, to break something. He was wearing a dark hoodie with the hood low over his head and the sleeves too long. Squinting, Rumi could just make out a portion of his face in the darkness. Lips cracked, hair ragged and pale blue, as if bleached and never cleaned again, and pale, sickly pale. His gaze was fixed on her and the location where the students had been last seen, not the gate. Not with excitement, not with curiosity, with malice. Feral, calculated, and predatory. Then, he turned. He vanished, blending back into the shifting crowd. Rumi continued to stare for a moment. Ru? Izuku repeated the question in a quiet but tense voice. Just got a bad feeling, she said, slowly shaking her head before jumping back down to support him. Is there someone observing us? Looking up at the sky, she said, maybe, or maybe something worse. As he walked past them, Aizawa saw her hesitating. Difficulty? The crowd gave me a glimpse of someone dubious. He didn't appear to be there for the cameras. I'll notify security to rescan the area. However, if you're correct, he scowled, remain alert. Always. Rumi grinned again. His wave was languid. And tone down the PDA while you're at it, he added. Nah. Rumi threw her arm around Izuku's waist. Izuku simply laughed and said, we'll keep it reasonable. This time, Aizawa didn't even bother to respond. Rumi's red eyes narrowed as she took one final look back as the couple entered the building together. Whoever it was, he wasn't merely observing, he waited. There was the usual start of day chatter in the halls of UA, but Rumi Usugami was not listening. Not even the whispered taunts about how she was getting too close to her very tall boyfriend, nor the jokes or classmate banter. Every squeak of shoes in the hallway made her muscles tense, her tail flicked once in agitation, and her ears twitched constantly, subtle but alert. She continued to look toward the windows. Naturally, Izuku took notice. You all right? As they were seated, he muttered. She whispered back, her eyes narrowing a little, something's off, as if someone were watching me, unable to get rid of it. Under the desk, he laid a soothing hand on hers and said, I believe you. The door to the classroom, however, slid open. Aizawa entered, his hair already half falling across his face, and he looked as sleep-deprived as ever. First off, he said in his usual dry voice, I apologize for the circus of the press this morning. They won't come that close again because the school has strengthened the perimeter. He paused, looking around the room languidly. I watched the video of the combat assessments. As a whole, good. I was surprised by a few of you. Before you hurt someone, others should reconsider your tactics. I'll be reviewing each person's performance notes individually. He rubbed a hand over his eyes. As he walked toward the corner of the room and suddenly pulled out his sleeping bag, he muttered, but before I forget, we need a class president and vice president. Half sentence, he crawled inside. Decide amongst yourselves. The room exploded as soon as the zipper was closed. I put myself forward, Kirishima exclaimed. Me too. With both hands up, Kaminari continued, I have the charm and the hair. Absolutely not, Momo crossed her arms and muttered. Why don't I? I'm flamboyant enough to stand in for us, Mina added with a smile. With a raised hand, Rumi even stirred, saying, I'm not cut out for politics, but I will throw my vote behind the green bean. What? Why me? Izuku blinked as he asked. Because you're dependable, she said sarcastically, and cute under pressure. Kirishima chuckled and said, dude, she's got a point. Iida remained calm and tall in the middle of the confusion, saying, this approach is chaotic. Voters should cast anonymous ballots in a democratic and fair election. Juru smirked as she leaned back from her desk and said, you know he wants it the most, right? For this reason, he is proposing it. Iida stood by his idea despite flushing. Names were then written on scraps of paper and deposited in a box. Yayorozu, count them. Aizawa simply waved a hand from inside the sleeping bag without even coming out. Midoriya is the class representative, she said. I am vice. Even the rowdiest students nodded in agreement as the class fell silent. Aside from one. Bakugo. With his arms folded and his eyes piercing Izuku, he leaned back in his chair and said, TCH. Figures. The nerd gets lucky in everything. Maybe try not exploding everyone and people might vote for you next time, said Rumi without missing a beat. A few people laughed at that. Bakugo snarled but made no answer. For a moment, Aizawa's head emerged from the sleeping bag. Good, completed, going forward. Suddenly they were in regular classes, which should have been reassuring, literature, math, history, and hero arts. However, Rumi? She never stopped scanning. Never give her ears a break. There was a problem. She sensed it, and they would all do so soon. Lunch. Under high ceilings and golden sunlight, students buzzed like a hive, laughter and silverware clinking as Lunch Rush's masterful menu filled the air with the aroma of grilled meats, savory curry, and fresh bread. Yue knew how to do lunch right. Class 1A, or the majority of them, sat at one corner table. Izuku had taken up residence with Rumi nestled beneath his arm, his tray hardly touching his as he watched her, her shoulders stiff, her ears turning back and forth like satellite dishes all the time, but his arm provided solace, something to lean on, something tangible. Are you okay? He murmured close to her ear. She grunted quietly in response, saying, no threats, however. Su, Ochako, Juru, Denki, Kirishima, Mina, Iida, and Momo were seated across the table, half eating and half debating what the ideal hero pose was. Momo smiled slightly and remarked, I still can't believe you're our class rep, Midoriya. Well deserved. Izuku rubbed the back of his head and said, I was genuinely surprised. However, I feel honored. I'll put everything I have into it. Who else was I going to cast my ballot for? When Rumi eventually picked up her chopsticks, she muttered, I didn't want that headache. You dodged a bullet, Jiro laughed. Though it was funny watching everyone throw themselves at the position like it was the pro-hero draft. A vote was the most democratic choice, Iida defended, waving. I was only thinking logically. Denki snorted and said, you also did, like, 3 speeches, in 2 minutes. Everyone laughed, including Rumi, who at last relaxed her shoulders and smiled a little. Mina leaned over and teased, Rabbit, you've been jittery all day. Your ears are twitching as if you're anticipating a villain to emerge from a cereal box. She's like a living security system, Jiro said. Maybe we should put bells on her. You all laugh now, said Rumi, rolling her eyes. With her hands karate chopping the air, Iida interrupted, but I think staying on high alert is commendable. A proactive attitude is key to heroism, she said. We parted ways as the jovial conversation continued, the upbeat hum fading into the background. Outside the UA gates, with their gear scattered all over the sidewalk, Reporters continued to pour into the main gate, noisy and restless. "We are entitled to know. Leave the gates open. All we want is answers." However, the figure that had slipped between them went unnoticed. Face shadowed under a hood, pale, twitchy. His fingers twitched close to his neck as his hands flexed with idle malice. He peered through the fence at the campus buildings. He whispered to the media, "They lock you out, like rats behind a wall. It won't matter, though." Grinning beneath his cracked skin, he looked up. "Because now the game starts." He held up his hand. A few seconds later in the cafeteria mid-bite, Rumi's ears shot upward, almost brushing Izuku's chin, and she stopped chewing. Her nose twitched, and her eyes narrowed. Something's wrong. Then, BWAHHHHH. The cafeteria was filled with red lights and sirens that screamed in pulses that seemed to pierce the skull as the alarm sounded like a war horn. GHK. With a gasp, Rumi fell forward, holding her ears to her head. It was too loud. Her entire body was curling inward as her ears screamed, pounding and vibrating. Izuku responded immediately. "I've got you," he said, turning to protect her with his arms wrapped around her. "Simply take a breath. I've got you." Despite being right next to her, he was somehow separated from his girlfriend by the terrified students as chaos erupted all around them. A wave of unadulterated panic erupted as food trays fell to the ground, tables toppled, and students pushed and screamed past one another. "All out. Warning. Intruder." Iida scurried over to a nearby student who appeared older. "What does this mean?" "It indicates that the security barrier was breached." The upperclassman yelled, "We're completely under lockdown." Izuku glanced at the cafeteria windows, which were illuminated by red emergency lights. He noticed that the press was still outside the gate, being restrained by President Mike and Aizawa. "Is it only the media? However, then, Rumi?" He whirled. Students weren't paying attention to where they stepped, and she'd become lost in the crush, her petite frame disappearing beneath frantic legs and bags. A piercing yelp broke the clamor. Izuku saw her. Rumi was curled in agony beneath Sue, who had thrown herself on top of her, arms spread wide, protecting her like a green umbrella from the stampede. That was sufficient. Izuku lost his temper. His arms sparked with electricity, complete cowl. With a heavy crack, his feet landed squarely on the cafeteria exit as he leapt from his spot, eyes blazing. "Everyone freezes." Like thunder, his voice ripped through the cafeteria. His presence sliced through the panic like a blade, suddenly taller, charged, commanding. The throng abruptly stopped. "You're UA pupils. You don't run like this," he screamed, his energy crackling and causing the air to hum. "Your classmates are not trampled underfoot. You shift. With discipline." Everyone was silent, breathless, and staring. "Organize the line," he said, pointing to Iida. "Be calm but move fast. No more pushing." He then leapt back down and hurried to the scene at the cafeteria's corner. He said, "Sue, thank you," as he arrived at them. She said calmly, "I just did what needed to be done," as she slipped away from Rumi. Rumi's ears continued to twitch feebly as she looked up at him. She whispered, "It was too sharp. I didn't expect that sound. It struck me like a hammer while I was tense." "I know," he said, lowering himself before her. Blinking, she said, "What are you?" His voice was firm as he said, "Get on, now." She hesitated, then gave a small smile. No protest, no fight. With her face buried in his shoulder and her arms slipping around his neck, she climbed onto his back. Whispering, "I could get used to this," she said. Smirking, he said, "You already have." And Izuku Midoriya, the recently elected representative for Class 1A, carried her out with her securely fastened, back straight, eyes focused, and ready for anything that might happen next. Even though the sirens had stopped blaring, the anxiety persisted like smoke. Clone of Ectoplasm, the strict math teacher and pro-hero whose quirk made it easy for him to multiply himself, Ectoplasm was escorting students from all departments around UA with swift, wordless precision as his clones led each class back to their homerooms. The atmosphere in Class 1A's homeroom was subdued but chaotic beneath the surface, with chairs creaking, desks scraping lightly, and whispers bouncing around the room like static as everyone tried to comprehend what had just transpired. Izuku was standing by the window, alert. He hadn't sat since they'd come back, and Rumi was still sitting comfortably on his back, arms around his neck, legs leaning against his sides in a familiar and oddly reassuring position. She hadn't objected to the piggyback, not when it made her feel secure. For the first time that day, her ears twitched once, twice, and then slowly relaxed. Ochako, Juru, Mina, Kirishima, Denki, Momo, Sue, and Iida sat down again, and the rest of the class did the same in silence. You know, I'm just gonna say it, Rumi's danger ears are officially more reliable than UA's security system, Jiro said dryly as the room fell silent. Seriously, Mina said, her eyes wide. She twitched, and then boom, sirens, chaos, full panic mode. Denki half jokes, yup, from her on out her ears are my danger barometer. With a slight smile, Izuku squeezed Rumi's leg and said, are you okay? She whispered, I'm still a little tense, but better now. UA main gate. Only a few seconds before. All that was left of the fortified steel gates of UA was a heap of corroded metal. No explosion, no tools, just decay as twisted metal crumbled inwards, blackened and brittle, as if time had sped up and rust had engulfed the building in seconds. The rot still hung in the air like smoke, and the figure Rumi signaled outie stood close to the center of the damage, his fingers twitching slightly. With a strange sense of satisfaction, he gazed at the disintegration. Murmuring, too easy, he said, the press will just be noise. When they realized the barrier was down, civilians and journalists rushed forward, yelling and demanding answers, but they hadn't actually seen him. That was the point. They'll hurry. They will become anxious, and I get what I came for in the midst of the confusion. A half smile formed on his cracked lips. The fun starts with All Might's schedule. The infiltration quest is 100% finished. Then he disappeared in a whirl of dust and darkness. Main gate of the investigation site, wearing his usual immaculate green vest and suit pants, Principal Nezu stood on a short stool with his paws clasped behind his back and his tail swaying thoughtfully. His perceptive eyes scrutinized every inch of the ruined gate. His constant smile persisted, but underneath it, rage swirled. They had infiltrated his school. Sparks flickered from the edge of the corroded steel as Powerloader, his mechanical exo-armor humming, hunkered low near the base of the twisted gate, using a specialized handheld device to scan what was left. This isn't mechanical damage, he stated somberly. A quirk did this. Something that quickly ages or decomposes the material. Neither a battering ram nor a tool could accomplish this. Vlad King was standing next to them, his red scarf fluttering in the wind, his arms folded, his towering frame looming over the mess. Vlad stated bluntly, the press could not have done this, someone else entered. This was a complete breach, not just a hostile crowd. The media merely served as a diversion. Nezu remained smiling, however, his tone became icy. The sanctity of the UA was violated by someone. We'll locate them, and after we do. He left the sentence hanging, he was not required to. Returning to 1A, present Mike was unusually silent as Aizawa walked into the homeroom, dark circles under his eyes deeper than usual. Without preamble, Aizawa stated, what matters is that you're all safe. He stopped to look at their faces. We think it was a press surge that was too aggressive, they forced their entry. There was a heavy silence. Izuku furrowed his brow. Once more, Rumi's ears perked up. Present Mike attempted to be humorous by saying, now everything is under control. Just a miscommunication. Now that we have increased security at the gates, you can rest easy. I get it, Sensei, ever the obedient student, Iida saluted. However, tension hung in the room like smoke after a fire as the teachers left once more. Izuku remained motionless. Rumi said in a whisper, they're lying. With his gaze still fixed on the door, he gave one nod. A seedy bar shrouded in shadows. Camino ward the dim lights fought against the darkness, exposing cracked leather booths, an unmanned counter with dusty glasses, and only 2 occupants in a dilapidated back alley of Camino ward, where a flickering neon sign barely lit the grime-covered windows of a rundown bar long forgotten by the law. The air inside was thick with the smell of cheap alcohol and smoke. Instead of the booths, one person sat at the bar and swirled a glass of amber liquid. The person from the gate. His dirty, sky-blue hair shadowed his bloodshot eyes, and he now wore a severed, withered hand on his face like a mask. His skin was pale, almost colorless, like ash. Cracks appeared along his lips, and his hands were constantly twitching and scratching at his neck, as if he were constantly teetering between rage and restlessness. Another man stood behind the bar. He was tall and lean, a bartender in sharp clothing, and his eyes were just yellow glowing lights rather than the typical human eyes. His body was shaped like black mist. Ua's gate was nothing, the man seated said, addressing the cloud of smoke and mist. They scrambled like ants. Just a warm-up Kurogiri, he muttered, his voice gravelly but tinged with twisted joy, and now. He allowed a ruthless smile to stretch his cracked lips as he leaned back, setting his drink and steeping his hands under his chin. The peace symbol is disintegrating. Gradually, we'll take action soon. Something stirred in the shadows behind him. The faint creak of sinew and muscle too big for the space, a heavy breath. A huge, hideous figure loomed in the deepest corner of the bar, half hidden in shadows, its hulking form barely illuminated by the dim light, but its sheer size was enough to frighten even the most courageous of men. Kurogiri nodded respectfully and said, "Tamura Shigaraki, everything is falling into place." Shigaraki's sardonic smile grew wider. "Next time, the students won't just hear sirens," he said. "Screams will be heard by them." The following day, Class 1A, UA High. Despite yesterday's events, Classroom 1A was filled with the usual rustle of chairs, light chatter, and tentative optimism as morning sunlight filtered through the high windows. Standing at the front with his arms folded and his yellow capture weapon securely wrapped, Aizawa's eyes scanned the class with a sharper than normal look, but his tone was the same dry monotone as always. "Today, there are no regular lessons." The whispers vanished in an instant. "For the entire day, you'll be undergoing a special heroics rescue training session at one of the specialized training grounds on campus." A campus map appeared on the screen behind him as he tapped his tablet, with a red dot pulsing in a blinking pattern on a sizable circular area distant from the main school building. "It's a facility designed to simulate various disaster scenarios." He didn't grin. The weight in the air shifted. This was no ordinary lesson. This was a prelude to what was to happen. "Heroics rescue training," was the first word that Aizawa said, and the classroom practically exploded with enthusiasm. Ochako bounced in her seat, her eyes sparkling. "Yes. What I've been waiting for is right here. What I want to do is rescue work." Several others surrounded her and joined in the excitement. With a fist pump, Kirishima said, "Yes, real hero stuff. Rescuing others." Mina excitedly twirled a pen, saying, "This is going to be awesome. I bet I finally get to show off some moves." "Shock and awe, baby," smiled Denki. Naturally, Iida raised his hand before Aizawa had completed his sentence, asking, "Will the operations have a comprehensive structure? Will specialization be used to divide us? Do we need to practice coordinated movements in advance?" From behind, Bakugo muttered, scowling and with his arms crossed, "TCH. Please don't slow me down, regardless of the type of training." Amid all of this, Rumi grinned and cracked her knuckles, her red eyes shining. At last, she whispered, "It's time to make a real move." "I hope you're ready to get shown up, hero boy," she said, winking at Izuku. "Wouldn't expect anything less." Izuku simply laughed. Area for student pickup. Shortly thereafter, the class assembled at the UA Plaza, now decked out in their superhero costumes, complete with vibrant hues, outrageous patterns, and an abundance of individuality. Iida was on patrol like a drill sergeant, as was to be expected. "Get in line. We have to get on the bus as efficiently as we can. As the heroes of the future, let's lead by example." He was waved down by Izuku, who was already close to the entrance. "Calm down, Iida. I've got it covered." "All right everyone, single line, let's get on," he said, turning to face the group with a firm yet gentle tone. Momo moved forward to start the head count as the group started to move, saying, "Let's make sure we're all accounted for before boarding." The bus itself was somewhat unexpected. It was a long, open-plan bus with sideways aligned seats that oriented all of the students toward one another. Iida blinked as they filtered in, saying, "This is not what I expected." He sat down slowly, obviously uneasy in the absence of structure. Izuku was practically being pulled by the wrist by Rumi, who was already climbing aboard. "Come on, hero boy." Su, Ochako, Kirishima, Mina, Jiro, Denki, and Momo were all strewn about, laughing and chatting, and they sat down close to what was rapidly becoming their regular crew. The atmosphere was casual, almost everyday, with students teasing, talking over each other, and making jokes about who would be the first to fall into the mock floods. For once, Rumi appeared truly at ease as she leaned into Izuku, her arm clasped around his, her head resting on his shoulder, her bunny ears twitching languidly. "Feeling better?" Izuku inquired softly. With a sly smile, Rumi lightly slapped his shoulder and said, "Thanks to you. I suppose it helps to have my own muscle heater nearby." He laughed and gave her knee a gentle pat. "Hero boy, are you prepared for this?" With a tone that was both challenging and loving, she inquired. He answered, "I am." But, he curled his hand into a fist and looked down at it. He whispered to her, "There's something strange about One for All today. It feels like something's trying to get to me from inside." It had never felt like this before, but it was like a presence, distant but insistent, whispering from the very core of his being. It wasn't painful, exactly. He caught a glimpse of Rumi's piercing gaze. "What's wrong?" Izuku swiftly shook his head, saying, "No, perhaps it's just adrenaline." Despite her lack of conviction, she let it go and gave him a gentle chest pat. "Hiro, please don't cheat on me. My favorite training dummy is you." The warm sun streamed in through the windows, illuminating the rows of seats with golden light, and the bus hummed softly beneath the chatter of Class 1A as it rolled toward their destination. The discussion eventually descended into the trendiest subject of all, hero popularity. "I'm calling it now," Denki said with a smile, flinging an arm over the back of his chair. "I'll be in ads, manga, and possibly even my own energy drink. Get charged. Savor the zap." "PFF'd, that sounds gross," Mina said, leaning forward with bright eyes. "I'll win the dance competitions and the votes of the fans, and you'll sell out in the first week." "Come on, people love the mysterious type," Toru said, laughing inconspicuously from the other side of the aisle. "I'll be well known, simply using a floating microphone for interviews? Iconic?" "You'll be popular for sure, Toru," Sato replied gently, "but I think heroes with heart are what people really follow." Iida steepled his fingers and remarked, "I'd like to be known as someone that represents efficiency as well as grace and peace." Fumikage smirked and tugged at his beaked lips as he muttered, "Just don't scare the interviewers with your handshots," from his seat. Kirishima leaned forward from the back, saying, "To be honest, I'm cool as long as I can encourage kids to be honest and strong. Even if I'm not the best." Then, as though called by destiny, Bakugo's name popped into the discussion. "How is Boom Boy doing over there?" Denki remarked, pointing to the red ticking time bomb. Bakugo turned his head slowly and glared over his shoulder, saying, "What did you say?" "I mean," Mina said, sounding sardonic, "but with that temper, could you even be popular? I believe that yelling at children is prohibited at fan events." "Yeah," said Sato perceptively, "you'd probably scare off sponsors just by showing up." Fumikage continued, "I imagine your endorsement meetings would end in explosions," with his trademark deadpan. "He'd go viral for all the wrong reasons," Toru said. "Like, hero punches vending machine during photoshoot, levels of bad." In an exaggerated news anchor voice, Denki declared, "Anger hero explosion boy goes off on 5-year-old for asking about his catchphrase." "You might need a PR team bigger than the rescue squads," Ochako said, suppressing a laugh. "You extras wanna die today?" Bakugo said, slamming his hand against the window frame with his teeth exposed. The bus erupted in laughter. "You're just proving our point, dude," Kirishima said, smiling and shaking his head. "You'd be #1 in rage compilations." Even Aizawa, who was seated in the front, swiveled slightly. "Bakugo, don't make too many death threats. Technically, we are still on school grounds." In the midst of the commotion, Rumi leaned into Izuku and briefly rested her head on his shoulder as the entire bus burst out laughing once more. "You know," she said, smiling mischievously, "I believe you would be well liked. Good hands, underdog story, kind eyes." "Are you trying to boost my ego or steal my hoodie again?" Izuku asked, blushing but maintaining eye contact. She stole a quick peck on his cheek and said, "I plead the fifth," which caused Denki to howl from 2 rows up. "Midoriya is competitive. Someone write this down," he yelled. Without glancing, Rumi threw him off. "Don't worry, Pikachu. At the zoo, you're still well liked." Rumi just snuggled in closer, stretching her legs and taking in the atmosphere, feeling relaxed for the first time in a long time as her fingers traced Izuku's arm and her voice was soft. More laughter broke out. "Hero boy. Are you prepared for this?" Izuku's grin grew softer. "Yes. Come on, let's save lives." But that weird, hollow thrum still throbbed beneath the surface of his being. One for All seemed to be observing him, or worse, waiting. At last, the bus came to a smooth stop in front of a massive dome-shaped building tucked away in the far corner of the UA campus. As the doors hissed open, Aizawa called, "Okay, everyone off." As the entire scope of the building became apparent, students poured out, looking up right away and then up again. The first person to gasp was Ochako. "Whoa, all of this for training?" Denki shaded his eyes from the sun and asked. Kirishima whispered, "This thing's bigger than a sports stadium." "What's UA's budget?" Mina blinked. With a flat grunt, Aizawa stepped down behind them and said, "Don't ask." The class followed him into the dome through tall metal doors, and a sense of wonder grew as they entered. Before them stretched a vast artificial disaster zone, a miniature world under a steel sky. With fires burning in controlled sectors, crumbling buildings leaning over murky water, chaos, wreckage, and rubble crafted with precise intent. A large lake with a single rescue boat resting near the plaza. A broken-down train track curving along one side, and even an area that resembled a mountain pass. Aizawa's voice echoed, "Welcome to the USJ. The unexpected joint for simulation. It is intended to replicate extensive disaster situations so that you can rehearse search, rescue, and support activities." "That name is so extra," Mina whispered to Toru. Like half the school, Toru returned in a whisper. "You'll be working under the supervision of 3 teachers today," Aizawa said. "Myself, and..." On the upper catwalk, a hatch hissed open, and a figure, resembling an astronaut with their big, bulky white costume and helmet that helped hide their face behind the black visor, floated down on a platform that was being lowered by wires. 13, concluded Aizawa. "Oh my god," Ochako practically vibrated as she squealed. "That's 13. Being an expert in disaster situations and having saved lives in more than 30 significant incidents, she is regarded as one of Japan's greatest rescue heroes. She is incredible." "Thank you, Uraraka," 13 said with a kind laugh. "That's really lovely." "She truly is a good hero," Izuku said quietly next to her, "smart, quick-witted, excellent control." "Are you trying to impress me or the spacewoman?" Rumi smirked as she looked at him. "Can't it be both?" he said, sheepishly scratching his cheek. Aizawa narrowed his eyes a little, unimpressed by the hero worship. "Where's All Might?" "He got caught up dealing with a rash of villain incidents on his commute," 13 sighed behind her helmet. "Stated that he would make an effort, but it sounded pessimistic." "That man, fine," Aizawa moaned under his breath. "We'll adapt." 13 raised one hand for silence and gave the class her whole attention. "Students of 1A, she stated in a firm yet kind voice, the lesson we are learning today is extremely important. You've all witnessed the glitz and glamour of quirks in battle, but what many people forget, or fail to notice, is that quirks can be dangerous. Even yours. Particularly mine." There was a respectful silence in the room. This facility isn't meant for display. It is to teach people how to save other people. You will encounter simulated calamities today, including earthquakes, fires, floods, and wreckage. You will be practicing rescue operations, not fighting. Because you will be fighting more than just villains when you become a hero. You're going to save lives, and that assumes command. It requires courage. "Pay attention," said Aizawa, nodding. "This is the cornerstone of what it truly means to be a hero." 13 pointed to the various zones dispersed throughout the USJ's dome-shaped building from the top of the stairs by the large central fountain. "Each section replicates a different disaster scenario," she said, describing a conflagration zone, flood zone, landslide zone, and so forth. "You will be divided into smaller groups, and you will move among them." Rumi twitched her ears. Full tilt. Instant warning. Something was amiss as her crimson eyes narrowed and scanned the atmosphere. With a sharp but quiet voice, she reached over and grabbed Izuku's sleeve, saying, "You feel that?" Izuku nodded slowly after blinking. "Yes, it's similar to pressure, as if something is wrong." Then, close to the fountain, a glimmer of shadow appeared. Every muscle in Rumi's body tensed as she said, "That ain't right." A black fog like mist spiraled into a swirling, void-like vortex, and the water in the fountain rippled unnaturally as the shadow grew thicker, warping the air with a deep gravitational pull. "Aizawa-sensei!" Izuku yelled, gesturing, "There's." However, it was already taking place. Kurogiri emerged from the void, his body composed of swirling mist except for the collar that anchored the void where his head should be, resembling a metal brace, and his voice was cold and courteous in a way that made your skin crawl. "I'm sorry for the interruption. We didn't anticipate arriving so early." Tamura Shigaraki appeared beside him, a tall, pale young man dressed in black and gray, his hands twitching all the time, his pale blue hair shaggy and disheveled, his lips dry and cracked, and his most unsettling feature was the severed hand clutched tightly to his face, attached like a hideous mask, while several other hands hung loosely from his arms and shoulders like a macabre coat rack. And the air rumbled behind them. Heavy footsteps shook the concrete as a huge, hulking figure emerged from the portal, towering over them all, its muscles grotesquely overdeveloped, its skin a glossy dark purple stretched tight over its body, its exposed brain pulsing beneath a translucent dome on its head. its beaked mouth full of razor-like teeth, steel talons clicking as it flexed monstrous fingers, its eyes completely dark. Then there was more. A sea of chaotic energy bled into the USJ as dozens of villains emerged from the shadows behind the trio, some snarling, some smiling, all armed with knives, bats, odd tools, and other low-level quirks that steamed or sizzled in the air. Peering out from behind the hand on his face, Tamura raised his head a little. "Well," he rasped, "we located the small nest of the symbol of peace. What an ideal location for crushing the eggs before they hatch." A quiet chuckle. His eyes shone behind his hand as he took a step forward. "My name is Tamura Shigaraki, and the goal of my League of Villains is to eliminate All Might. But, well," he tilted his head, his neck cracking, "since he's not here, I suppose we'll just have to kill you instead." The class erupted in gasps. Aizawa was on the move already. 13. "Get the students out," he barked, goggles snapping over his eyes as his capture scarf whipped out behind him. "I'll hold them off." After saying that, he leapt into the main plaza and started to confront the crowd. 13 turned abruptly and said gravely, "Everyone, now get out of there. Observe the escape route guidelines, follow me." "No way I'm running," Rumi said, lowering her posture. "The man from the gate is that one." Izuku clenched his fists and said, "Yes, I could accept that." With a sharp crack of motion, Aizawa rushed into the fray as villains started to spread out through the dome like dark ink in water. Before his feet even touched the ground, his scarf caught and threw one villain to the ground. The conflict had already started. A haze of movement and fabric sliced through the confusion. Aizawa's eyes glowed red under his goggles as several quirks instantly vanished as he dropped like a missile into the middle of the villain mob, his capture scarf wrapping around two necks in a single fluid motion and pulling them off their feet with practiced force. Growling, "Stay down," he said. Before Aizawa's boot hit his temple and knocked him out cold, a fire-based villain raised his hand to strike back, only to drop it limply as his quirk failed. Aizawa's scarf danced through the air, catching, binding, disarming, and snapping as he outwitted the villains like a one-man army, causing steel to crack. The Eraser hero was this. In actual combat, no one undervalued him because of this. 13, meanwhile, was frantically directing the pupils to safety close to the exit tunnel. In this manner, "Don't panic and move fast. We can help him," Rumi said, her eyes darting between the battlefield and the exit, her ears rigid. Izuku repeated, his fists shaking at his sides, "We should help him." One of them was raging inside of him, practically telling him to do something. "That thing, it's not normal." "Your students," said 13, holding up a firm hand. "Your current task is to survive. Proceed." They turned reluctantly to comply. They didn't get very far, though. The cold weight of a predator's presence filled the air as Kurogiri emerged from a portal that shimmered open before them, black mist spiraling violently outward. "I must commend you," he said smoothly, "for your well-executed quick retreat. Well, now. All Might, where are you?" The class stopped in the middle of their escape. "I'll show you where you can shove that question," Bakugo said without hesitation. He roared and charged ahead. Kirishima hardened his arms in mid-leap and followed with a piercing war cry. Kurogiri, however, was at ease. Between them, a portal opened and the two boys were sucked into mist and hurled across the USJ with a sickening whoosh of compressed wind. No. When 13 attempted to use her quirk, a second warp gate exploded in front of her, engulfing her arm in a burst of energy. With a slight twist, Kurogiri said, "I'm afraid I can't allow that." 13. Mist formed like blades. He turned to the others as she staggered back. The situation became lethal. Despite the attempts of Izuku, Rumi, Su, Shoji, Ojiro, Momo, Jiro, Denki, and Shoto to help, Kurogiri's form split, coiled, and exploded into a wide-field teleport gate, with the intention of dispersing the class throughout the various disaster zones. "No!" With her ears flicking as she reached for him, Izuku shouted, attempting to push Rumi back toward the others, but she was already disappearing into the mist. Damn it! He was pulled backward by the strange pull of the void, but before the darkness engulfed him, he made eye contact with the other students. And he spoke in a commanding voice. "This will be overcome by all of you. I demand it. You don't back down from a fight. It's an order from your class representative." Then he disappeared. For half a beat, the dome reverberated in silence, prior to it exploding into utter, spiraling mayhem.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, bye bye.